This is a fuck ever stream. So this stream is just all the things I've found recently over the last week.
Oh, cool.
So there's no overarching theme. Cause it's fun to have a theme, but I think it's also fun to just not have a theme.
Yeah. Did you read my 2,200 and something word little micro thesis on the nature of consciousness?
Oh my
That
god,
was
it's
pretty fun.
that was like a week ago. I need to find it. I need to get caught up.
Yeah. I enjoyed writing that. I converted it into a blog post, but when I sent it to you originally, it had more links and stuff in it, so it's
Oh yeah,
probably
I
better.
remember. I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was the half of it before you send a Hangout link, and then after the Hangout link or the Meet link, there was even more of it. But yeah, it's fun. I've thought about these kinds of things a lot in the last 2 years. It's cool because there are some people who have lots of intelligence, lots of IQ points in their brains, even more than I have, but it seems as though all they want to do is they just want to spend all their time talking about edgy politics, 100% of it. And I don't understand how that doesn't just get tedious. Do you never want to think about other things? It's really strange, you know?
Yeah, I think that I think it's partly just for the joy of complaining. I think
Yeah.
more so than anything else. But
And it's
it's fun
easier.
to pretend that it might make a difference, though.
Yeah. And I don't know. So, I guess you're pretty black-pilled or some shit.
Yeah, kind of. I've gotten much more black-pilled over the last month or so.
Is that, I'm just genuinely curious, is that partially my fault?
Well, I guess you don't help.
Yeah.
Mostly though, for me, mostly it has to do with men's issues. Where for example, I was listening to Molyneux had Brian on, which was very very interesting, very refreshing.
Yes, I saw that.
Well, and I was listening to them talk, right? And of course, they're both married men. So Molyneux is going on this whole spiel about how men and women, they shouldn't really criticize each other as a class because the overarching evolution of men and women was such a way that it was men helped women evolve and vice versa, and therefore they shouldn't criticize each other because obviously they had a hand in creating that. And I'm sitting there thinking, this just makes me want to criticize everyone more. Right? That, to me that doesn't mean, oh, therefore I can't criticize men or women. It makes me think, oh, so women are terrible because men are terrible, and men are terrible because women are terrible. So they're both not only are they terrible in and of themselves, but now I have an entirely new angle for just hating everyone.
Mutually reinforcing terribleness.
Yeah, they're awful. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for men and there's no excuse for women. It's just all terrible all the way down, and what's the point of anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the tone of this stream. Just fuck it.
Yeah, and it's also one of those game theoretically unstable things because in practice all that's going to mean that is saying that is that people won't criticize women, but it won't actually stop people from criticizing men because that's already completely culturally mainstream and it's not going to be rolled back anytime soon. So
yeah, exactly too. And that's the other thing that pisses me off about it is there's this whole pretension of, oh, we're having a conversation about men and women, right? And we're going to be critical of both bad female and bad male behavior and everything. And it's such bullshit because in practice it's it's only the men that are ever going to get criticized.
yeah, I mean, one of the insights that Molyneux was criticized for a few years ago was that he said that women bear a responsibility for men's violence. And you can actually support this with a more rigorous argument now. So we know that criminal behavior is heritable, to a very significant degree, as are all other quantifiable traits. And if you combine this with the knowledge that women have by far the most, what would the expression be? Well, just the most choice, basically, in the dating and marriage and sexual marketplace, that they could unilaterally prevent a lot of suffering if they chose better. You talked about this in a video. It's obviously, you can acknowledge the existence of rape and I guess forced marriage and these kinds of things, and you can say that some violent men are a product of such, forced unions, but that's not where the vast majority of violent men in the West today, came from. They came from consensual unions with women who chose violent men, or, in many cases. So, yeah, that was just struggling to relate this back to what you were saying. Yeah, the reciprocal nature of these sort of toxic elements of gender relations.
Yeah, well, and then I remember Brian also brought up, like particularly in America, you have this problem of black inbreeding as a result of women not knowing who the fathers of their children are, and they didn't reference anything statistical, and I don't know how much information we have about how prevalent that is, but just taking a look at that, just like stepping back and thinking, there's a problem of inbreeding as a result of women, like not only choosing badly, but just not having basic knowledge of who the father of their own children is, and then it's leading to the next generation of blacks like just unknowingly being incestuous. And it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, how do you look at that situation and find like any way to blame men? I mean, obviously you blame, like you say, oh, they're deadbeat dads or whatever, and it's just stupid. And it's like how you look at like how little is being asked of women, and it's so frustrating that not only is it too much to ask, but to even frame it in that way is like seen as this awful, forbidden, horrible thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the problem is the traditionalist narrative, and this is the sort of thing that a lot of, I guess, trad women or trad cath women, traditional Christian women, say that they want to go back to, is a situation wherein women dominated men or something, which is to say imposed their will on them, and female obligations to men were a result of that arrangement. But it kind of looks as though sort of getting the causality of the relationship backwards. It looks more like women are prepared to accept a certain level of male authority if and only if their survival depends on it. And they're willing to accept obligations to the male sex and to their society, again, if and only if their survival and the survival of their children, well, no, sorry, that's another matter, if their survival depends on it. And as soon as your society is wealthy, all of that dissolves, and the situation as it is now is that women have no obligations to anything above themselves, and men aren't prepared to enforce it because that's part of the traditionalist narrative that's just wrong, is that, like, men don't want to impose their will on women. That's never actually been how it's worked, again.
Yeah,
unless,
patriarchy is men as house Negro.
Yeah.
It's just a slightly privileged position of slave, and that's the thing that bothers me the most. Is all of these trad cons, they try to do this whole complementarian thing and try to say, oh, legitimate. It's all reciprocal, it's all blah blah, and it's like, no, it's not. Women have always been privileged, and it's like you point to anything, and it's like, oh, what about women being raped? And it's like, so compared to what? Compared to dying? Compared to being worked to death? It's like it's never been a comparison. It's like ridiculous.
There is such a thing as male authority, like men having a kind of veto power in the past, over, their property and stuff. And
yeah, and it's privilege. It's privilege because you don't have to think about anything, right? Like when someone else is the leader of something, you don't have to like bother. It's freeing.
The point, That's the point. Is the point is that it's always conditional. It's conditional on the woman's deriving some benefit from it. And if the woman wasn't deriving some benefit from it, then that was always it was always frowned upon. For a man to just I guess make use of his own resources at the expense of his wife or whatever. So
Well, and that,
like,
part of it too is like, there's a point in the stream of Molyneux and Brian where like he's trying to justify, like the qualities of female that have developed over time based on male preference, and he's like, yeah, like women, they like
which
men.
ones? Which ones?
That's what I'm gonna try to paraphrase here.
Okay.
So he's talking about in men. He's like, yeah, women wanted in men, this ability to provide and to protect and to be dominant and to do this thing and that. And it's like, okay, yeah, there's like usefulness in that. Like I can see how that kind of makes sense, right? Like, okay, women, like that makes sense. Some of the choices you've made. And then he's talking about women, and he's like, yeah, and like over time, women have grown to like be neotenous and like not have body hair. And I'm sitting here like, what, like how do you justify male preference at all? Like there's no justification there whatsoever. Like it was terrible. I was sitting here like, what virtue is there in the feminine if these are the qualities that have developed over time based on male preference? And then conversely, it just makes me think, okay, like men, they want to be slaves and they want to serve children forever, and that's it.
Also, that makes literally no sense.
I know, but but it does make sense in terms of like that's how things have developed, kinda.
Yeah, but there's no evolutionary selective pressure on females. Therefore, the body hair thing cannot be explained that way.
It's technically not true that there's none. Like there is a pressure. It's just much lighter, I suppose, than the pressure that acts on males, because males can't be anywhere near as selective generally. So the effect of this is that changes in the female population take longer, right? So these things that men find attractive, they might have taken an extraordinarily long time to become more prevalent in the female population. There is still that pressure, but it is fairly depressing as you were saying, Derek, like just how little generally men expect of women.
Yeah, I guess I do want to though bring up something that Kareem had brought up. I guess kind of veering towards the race conversation. First of all, he mentioned the U.S. being authentic about their anti-authoritarianism / libertarianism domestically, which we'll get into that. I got some thoughts on that. But also, the worst part about the alt-right I dislike are the victim mentality types that talk about whites being victimized. It isn't a dignified or a good mentality. And, like, normally that's how I'd prefer to think about things, which is, like, a very, very typically white thing. But, yeah, I'm more black-pilled on that now, too. I actually do think that when people talk about, like white, anti-white racism and oppression and everything, like, a couple of years ago, I thought there was something to this notion that, oh, they're just right-wing right-wing SJWs, right? But as the evidence has piled on, I'm really thinking that they have a legitimate case, and it's not something to be taken so lightly anymore.
Well, Derek, like, I don't know how this isn't obvious. Like, the United States is already looking kind of like South Africa, and it isn't even fucking minority white yet. Like, what do you think the situation's gonna improve?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, because in theory, it wouldn't take that much for things to improve. But I guess it is gonna need like a very strong narrative of taking anti-white racism seriously. Which is it's pathetic. It's pathetic that it even needs to be said. But I guess, if you have only the whites who are willing to lay down their arms and say, okay, let's not racialize everything and make a big deal of it. Well, if everybody else is still doing their racial in-group preference bullshit, particularly spreading false narratives about other forms of racism, then...
Well, it's like you've got to take your own side. Like, it's the game theory thing again. You have to take your own side, because if you don't, you just get fucked. You know.
Yeah, but
That's
I
basically
just
it.
don't feel any solidarity with other white people at all. I just think like I don't really care that much, which is also like a very typically white thing. Like I
Yes.
don't get it. I don't get it.
Like,
Oh,
I
good.
would like to add to
Jay
that.
Willie's here to chill for the whites a little bit. He's much better at that. I'm just kind of like,
Also, you said South Africa, so that summoned him.
yeah, there we go. Yeah, if you say South Africa 3 times, then it's like like a tire materializes, bursts into flames, and he just jumps out of it.
That is so true, actually. I couldn't come at a bad time. Whenever that happens, I'm gonna jump into discussion immediately. No doubt about it.
Would Be Good said this is an economic failure. I'm not sure what you're referring to. What's an economic failure? Being anti-white? I mean, kinda, I guess. I don't know.
Eh.
I don't know what that
But I
means.
can actually, I can actually shed some light on that discussion, right? Especially, which is very interesting, especially when it comes to South African context, right? And here's the kicker, right? It's going to take a while to explain, so bear with me. Is that I don't really feel any form of solidarity with other white people overall, right? But I do feel a very strong solidarity with people of my specific racial ethnic heritage, right? Which is far more important to me than any form of, because white isn't actually referring to a specific race. It's just grouping the natives of Europe, Middle East, and North Africa together for convenience purposes, for statistics, which does make sense. But there is really no proper racial identity. No, that's not actually a race. Like, it's really not. I can actually, because I have a document describing all the races, how they relate and so, and there's actually no proper race called white. It's just a term for group the races of Europe, Middle East, and North Africa, mainly for convenience purposes, and to count statistics in countries, especially countries outside of Europe, because then if you're going to have demographic, right, and calculate what race makes up this percentage, right, grouping together people of Europe, Middle East, and North Africa together is because there is sort of like a spectrum of appearances within those regions, which all of sort of like look kind of alike. You can't really draw any clear lines within that, because why would that line even be, right? So therefore, the term white makes sense for that thing, right? And therefore, if people in that category get mistreated because of being placed in that category, which is exactly what's happening in places like South Africa, United States, and Brazil, by the way, too. Not forget that. And also, going back to South Africa, it's very interesting when it comes to the context is that the term white is only more categories, because if you take the biggest type of whites in South Africa, that would be the Afrikaners, the Anglos, and the Lusos, right? Who are all look different. They have different languages, different history, and different cultures. And usually, if you assume somebody who is Anglo or Luso or Afrikaner to be one of the others, right? If you assume that all white South Africans, including the Anglos and the Lusos, are Afrikaners, then most Anglos and Lusos are usually quite insulted by that because they're really not the same people at all. And the same thing goes for most so-called white people, because it's more of a category that makes sense, but there is no solidarity within that category because it is not a real race or a real mass ethnicity. But it does make sense for statistical purposes. So the only solidarity that comes with it is that if you're gonna place us within this box, then you can't use that as justification to mistreat us legally, which is what's happening in places like South Africa, and not also in United States and Brazil, which is where you find those classifications making the most sense. And there's solidarity because if you're going to place us there, don't treat us like shit, right? Because otherwise we don't want to be classified as anything. If you're going to classify us as white because it makes sense from statistical purposes, which it does, then we just want to be citizens. We don't want to be treated as second-class citizens. We don't want to have discriminatory practice imposed on us, which we have in all those countries, right? More or less. And therefore, yeah, and that's actually quite important things to like bring up, but that's the reason why it's very hard to identify with something that isn't your actual race or ethnicity. That it's just convenience. It's it makes sense for that purpose, but not overall, right?
It is
And
kind of
that
an
is why-
interesting distinction, right? Because if you look at a lot of the way that the SJWs talk about quote unquote whiteness, they mean it in a different sense, right? They mean it in a sense of like the immediately perceived sort of a thing. And in that sense, the broader category makes sense. But then if you want to talk about people like having some kind of like heritage or in-group preference, it actually doesn't seem to map onto that well.
That's true. 100%.
And I would
true.
also add, Derek, I don't think the point is that you should feel compelled to identify with your race sort of a priori. The point, I guess, is just that, well, the pragmatic reasons that I mentioned, like, you know, anti-whiteness is going to affect you whether you identify as a white person or not. Like, if you say, I identify as an individual, you know, they're just going to think, you know, the typical BLM person is just going to think like, okay, that's kind of cute that you think of yourself as just an individual, but like it isn't going to stop you from being affected by their bullshit. And then the other thing is that like there's no such thing as a completely self-conscious, isolated individual. Like, as you said, being race blind, that itself is an extraordinarily white thing. And so is libertarianism. Like, it doesn't really matter what you value. It has a racial dimension to it. Libertarianism is an ideology which appeals to a certain type of white person and I guess also some Jewish people. But like, that's basically
Mainly.
it. So, yeah.
But
So, yeah.
and also it's like it's a lot of people basically they want to disassociate with so-called whiteness, right? I usually always want to do that because I don't like it as a concept outside of statistical purposes because it's very nonsensical. But I usually very, very, very strongly identify and care about people who share my own ethnic heritage a lot more than like the average person. Like, I think that if somebody does that, then no, that's what really does it. I just find the whiteness thing that because it's not really an heritage thing, right? That's why I don't care that much about it. But just because people of my own people are placed within that subcategory, that means that getting rid of sort of anti-white racism, right? Because it's racing towards racial groups because they're perceived as being in that subcategory, right? That is something that's gonna affect my people personally, right? So I don't care about the white thing as a whole. I care about my own people, right? That are being mistreated by anti-whiteness, right? But it's not really like I have that much concern of the other so-called white people more than I care about any other people, if that makes sense.
I guess my attitude towards white people is similar towards my attitude towards men, which is that as a class, as a group, they've asked for all of this. They've let all of this happen this way and have done very little to resist it. And to what degree is it interesting or whatever to like help people who aren't interested in saving themselves? And not even just saving themselves, but just like having the basic dignity of like not being oppressed and not being enslaved.
Oh yeah, so that's true. But I think that's more of a Western thing because if you look at places like South Africa and Brazil, I don't think that the people that are in the subcategory of whites, which definitely includes the Middle Easterners, I don't think that those people really shows it in the same way those in Europe and Anglo-America did, if that makes sense.
Well, I know. I think they do though. 'Cause I don't know. I guess maybe what I'm getting at is basically I see non-libertarians as subhuman. I guess that's what I'm really trying to say.
You have a point in that. It's
Maybe that's
true,
what we
though.
need a libertarian supremacist movement. I think maybe that's the issue. You know, like keep all. I guess maybe that's what Hop tried to do. I don't know. Who knows?
How does supremacy work with NIP though?
I can explain that.
I guess
I'll basically-
Atlas shrugged. You Atlas shrugged hard enough, and then laugh maniacally as the world burns.
Something I would say how that works is that if people, right, if somebody says that they want to have affirmative action, or they want to have communism, or they want to have a big welfare state, right, we, if we are libertarian, right, I'm not sure if I should call myself one, so I'm gonna let other libertarians decide if I fit in the category, right? So therefore, if we are a free-minded person, right, I don't think that we should shy away from advocating for the oppression of certain statists. Like if you want affirmative action, or if you want to race-based laws, right, or if you want to be people to be legally punished for being so-called racist, right? If you want that to be laws, like then if I talk to someone, so if somebody wants that, right, then I think it's perfectly libertarian to argue for their oppression, right? The people who want those state oppressive, so like the welfare status, the affirmative action, a lot of those bullshit laws, it is just horrible and evil, right? Those people deserve oppression. I think it's a perfectly consistent argument with the non-aggression principle, is to make sure that people who want the oppression to others, that are the ones that should be oppressed all forever because of their ideas. Like if you want affirmative action, then you deserve to be oppressed. You deserve to be a second-class citizen forever until you change your mind. Like,
yeah, it's a declaration of war. It's a declaration of a stated intention to support and to foster a terrorist monopoly to impose its will on you. So whenever anybody advocates anything to the left of anarcho-capitalism, I just tell them, why are you raping me? Stop raping me. I have to explain to them. I'm sorry, I have to calmly explain to you that rape is wrong. And then they're like, what are you talking about? I'm talking about funding the public schools. And I'm like, sorry, nope, it's all rape all the way down. And that's what they should have to own. It's the opposite of steel manning. Literally every single thing that you advocate that's part of government, it might as well be rape, and you're all in the same category. And I'm going to indulge in this black and white thinking because it makes me feel good. And I'm not even being sarcastic right now. That's just like legitimately how I feel.
Regarding white people not wanting to save themselves, two things. First of all, I'd say this is mostly a problem of Western Europe and the Anglosphere, not so much Central and Eastern Europe, at least not yet. And in the case of Western Europe and the Anglosphere, I guess I'm going to cope a bit here when I say that obviously I can sympathize about being frustrated with the masses, normies. But the thing is, the masses have always been kind of stupid. Like, I think you're kind of expecting too much from them. The world, like for almost all of history, the masses, like the world really does just kind of pass them by. They never had anything to do with the political process in the past. And the problem is the elite, like the elite that have come into that have become ascendant in our societies in the last few generations that have basically fucked everything up. And I don't know if there's a straightforward solution to that, like creating parallel elites or institutions. It's not entirely clear to me if that's feasible. But yeah, I do think that it's, so...
That's the thing, though, is I just feel like it's really not asking that much, because everybody knows I'm right. They just have to be a little bit more honest. It's not even asking people to be smart. It's asking people to be slightly more honest, just a tiny bit.
Well, logistically, it's very hard to argue against you. So
with the normies, as a member of a country with a direct democracy, I have to say it's you kind of would have to ban the mass media to even make an argument based on logic and fact.
I just have to say, that is very much 100% true, because the mass media is going to manipulate, and it's not going to be a genuine decision in the end, not part of democracy. But something I need to say about democracy, which is very important, right? Democracy basically says that if you set up a system, right, where the majority, right, irrespective of that majority being defined as a gender or race or political group or whatever you have, right? If a majority can use the state to advocate for laws that treats them better as other people, certain people better than others, just because they are the majority, right? Then, by that definition, if a democracy had that, if you see that groups of people in certain areas, based on voting statistics, are voting for policies that is taking away your own rights, right? Being terroristic, like having terrorist attacks against those people that are voting, that are literally, they can declare war on you, right? They declare war on your rights. They declare war, they want you to be underneath the roof, right? Going in and then blowing up those places so that they don't vote that way anymore, right? That is actually something that is the natural result of democracy, right? It gives the power of people in society to oppress you, not just the state, but it gives everyone the power to do it. This means that everyone in society could be your enemy. This means that attacking them and making sure that they are not around, right? I'm not going to demonetize this. If it's even monetized, then that is actually not aggression. It's actually you're responding to an aggression, right? Terrorists against democratically elected oppression, which is most democratic, is not an aggression. It is a retaliation, right? And that's why democracy is very ugly, because it usually results in makes that is the situation that democracy breeds, right? And that is a very ugly thing that I don't like, right? And people that are in favor of democracy, right, they kind of like have to need to have a lot of explaining to do, because they can't say that. They can't argue against me from a logistic position. They cannot say that me that somebody, not me, but someone else bombing a place, right? They are voting for their oppression is their aggression, because they are retaliating to being treated like shit. They are responding to. If someone going into your house and with a gun is threatening you, right, and then you defend yourself against that person, right, that is self-defense. But if the people do that, vote for someone that does that, right? And because democracy, they can do that, right? That means that attacking them because they're voting that way is the same type of self-defense. That's just a fact. It's just people don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. But democracy is a very uncomfortable reality.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is for example, like Would Be Good in the chat asked, who will protect your property rights? And this is the issue: is that our property rights aren't protected right now. Like we already live in that reality. So, and what it does is democracy just makes the violence of every day extremely accessible and extremely common. So. Mm-hmm. No, Georgism is a bad idea. I'm sorry, but there's such a thing as owning property and in having that investment and being allowed to get a return on that investment. Like the idea that there's a fundamental difference between like property that you build a home on and all other forms of property is like ridiculous. The only defenses of Georgism are just that it's preferable to the status quo, which is like the Special Olympics of statecraft.
Actually, this reminds me of a funny thing that I don't know if it's going on in other countries as well. Like in Switzerland, the far left is arguing because of the lockdown. Everyone who has had some economic trouble because of it should not be liable to pay the rent for that time, because the people who own buildings and rent them out are evil. Like everyone is just evil. If you own property and you rent it out to someone, you're profiteer, evil being. There's no justification for doing that ever. Like I don't know what exactly their alternative would be, but it's very, very interesting that they just think, if you're rich enough to own a house that you don't need to live in yourself, you should be punished.
I know what the alternative is. The alternative is communists, because they're communists. Like people like AOC says that because she's a communist, socialist, whatever, same shit. So yeah, that's pretty simple. That's the alternative that they want. They're just not honest about it.
Well,
but they're not using the.
Yeah, I guess I want to direct this to the the ongoings in where I come from in America, because last week when we had the stream about like the rioting and whatever, I felt a little bit white-pilled on this idea of just defunding the police. The more I've thought about it, though, is I think ultimately this is going to end really badly, and it sucks because they're getting half the picture. That the government is not really there to protect you. It's not really there to help anything. It does cost more than it gives you in benefits. Like, that's all true. The problem, though, is that in order for us to have a society where you don't have like government centralized police, you'd also have to get rid of everything else that's part of this. And these people who want to like form these like community based sorts of outreaches that provide these services, like they don't understand that they're not directing their animosity towards anything but the police. And that's the issue. The issue is that these people rioting, They're literally going to riot until racism is canceled, and they don't even measure racism. So they're gonna riot forever. They're never going to stop, and they're always going to feel justified because their initial justification was already bullshit. There's literally no solving it if you don't take out the race narrative, and these people aren't willing to do that. So what's going to happen is they're going to get rid of the police. They're going to replace it with nothing. They're going to keep all of the things that cause the violence intact in society. And then they're going to sit there and they're going to wonder why things aren't working. And everybody's going to blame people like me. They're going to say, oh, see, we tried anarchy and it didn't work. Because a bunch of statists bumbled up because they're stupid and they're anti-racist.
And also, like, they're not even anarchists. Like, they want to take the funding for police and put in social programs.
Yeah, that's the thing.
They
Yeah,
don't even
yeah.
wanna- they don't even
So
wanna
what
decrease
happens?
taxes.
Yeah, what happens when people say, I don't want to pay taxes for these programs? Like, are they
They
going to
don't want to be
non-violently
police.
force it out of people? No, they're going to say, oh, well, we're allowed to take money from you from taxes, and they're just going to recreate everything that they don't like. Or how people talk about gun rights, right? They're like, okay, you want gun control, who's going to enforce that without your police, right? These obvious issues that they're having because their entire narrative, it's not based on anything ideologically consistent. Like I read through a meme where people are saying, well, how do you stop a bank robber? And they do this whole thing where they say, well, the reason that they're robbing the bank is because they're impoverished. And if we just solve poverty, then they won't have to rob a bank. And it's like, that's literally, they literally need poverty to be solved for their narrative to work.
I know how to solve poverty. If you want to solve poverty, stop interfering with the economy, then poverty would probably disappear.
Yeah, well, and that's the frustrating thing is everybody knows that. People in government know that.
But they don't want to because they want the power.
Yeah, they want the power, and that's the issue with the state and the media is it exists to replicate itself and to reproduce its own power over and over again. So that's why you can't have any of it. You need to stop this whole narrative of like we need just a little bit of cancer. It doesn't work.
Well, and also like a very interesting point that you bring up about, the thing about what you replace the police with. It's interesting because in South Africa, right, the police force in Western Cape are still good, right, but the police force in the rest of the country are still shit, right? So people never use the police, right? The police are very, very bad in those places. They usually rob people, right? But also, like, people never call the police outside the Western Cape. They always call private security, right? And private security is actually more accessible and more powerful than the police. So if the state wanted to do something against the people, right, the state with the police force and the military, right, combined is less than most private security companies. So the state in South Africa can literally do nothing to enforce violence in that way.
Would be good in the chat said you can't not interfere with the economy. Well, I mean, you can. What you do is you just don't regulate anything. You get rid of all requirements for licenses. You deregulate all industry. You get rid of all employment law. Get rid of anything like that. You just do things through contracts. And people, for example, people they think things that are like insane. Like they think that governments manage all the currencies. If we didn't have government regulating monetary policy, then we couldn't have money. Like they literally think that the government invented money because they're required by law to use a specific currency. Like weird shit like that. I don't get it. Like
I was
literally
thinking recently that I don't really understand what the moral problem is with counterfeiting because, like, if you're just printing money out of thin air, banks already do that. Like when the bank loans you £5,000, for instance, that £5,000 didn't exist before they loaned it to you. So, like, what's wrong with counterfeiting? Not that I would do it, like, because I'm a good boy. I would never do such an evil and horrible thing. Like, I'm just saying I don't really understand the problem with it.
But I actually have a very interesting solution. People say, the government are the ones that are doing the money, right? That's actually a very new thing, right? The interesting historical fact is that just because I've spent a lot of time when I was a kid in Sweden because my parents have a country house there, right? That I was at a museum, right? A currency museum, right? And they told me that before in that country, right, they did not have a centralized currency, right? They actually did have the individual banks have their individual competing currencies, that they used to compete with each other about, and that worked as an economic system in Sweden for most of its history.
Wow.
There's one
Explain.
question about complete deregulation that maybe you can answer that. Like, for example, in agriculture, using poison and fertilizer that poisons the groundwater. How would the market, or like just a free economy, how would that be prevented without regulations?
I think that has to do with a lot of like downstream or what am I thinking of? Negative externalities, right? Part of it is that if you're providing a product and you can clearly trace where the harm is, that kind of gives you a standing for saying, hey, you didn't sell me the product that was promised. So there could be a contractual issue there, but also, like, obviously it's going to be harmful to your reputation, you know? Like, if you're selling food and your food is poisonous, that's really difficult to come back from.
The situation was that everyone was doing it, so you couldn't even walk with your wallet to buy, like, affordable, like, yeah, I guess there was some hippy-dippy farmers back in the day when the amount of poison used was the biggest, but you couldn't really, as an individual, you couldn't really make a choice not to support those that poison the groundwater and kill all the insects. So
Yeah, but eventually you could, right? And like the degree to which that becomes a problem is the degree to which a person who finds an alternative has an incentive to do so. So it becomes more and more valuable to do something in a way that's not going to not do that. And then they have this great narrative where they get to slam all their competitors as, you know, poisoning the ground and destroying everything. Like the Austrian wine, all that bullshit. The other thing too is that this whole business of regulation, you know, that can still be an industry. You know, you used to have companies that
True.
they would compete and they jump through hoops and they try to get all these special seals of approval from all these different companies. And rather
So
than
yeah,
you know having a government that has to, you know, take taxes in order to do all this service, you could have like an actual proper industry of competitors.
so Derek, don't you think we should all just like print our own money and get rich basically? I'm slightly trolling, of course, but like I don't see how it's any worse than what banks currently do because they literally do this all the time.
No, yeah, it's not. It's not worse, but that just means they're bad.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Point taken.
Well, and that's why crypto is so exciting, is because it gives us ways to use different currencies and to have all this technology and money without without all the
You know,
counterfeiting.
it amazes me that like it isn't that it's apparently difficult to convincingly fake money. Or I mean, I guess maybe there are loads of people who are doing it successfully and they'll be the ones who haven't been caught. But like just the idea of you know, precisely replicating the design on a banknote or or bills as you call them, like I don't see how it can possibly be that difficult.
Well, because if you look at
this
money,
is not advice. This is not. I'm not telling you guys to do this, but the Swiss banknotes, they have been changed to a new design that is easier to fake, easier to counterfeit than the old one.
Lol.
Just putting that out there.
oh, you heard it here
Not-
first.
I'm of course not advising anyone to do that. Just saying, you know.
I do
Yeah.
like I like the complexity of bills, right? That they try to find ways to avoid counterfeit. That's really creative. I don't know, when I look at like the quality of like an average bill, not American dollars. American dollars are like trash, but like our Hong Kong dollars are very pretty. They have like these cool like golden lines on them and watermarks and like little transparent parts of them. And it's also neat because different banks also print them, so you have all these like crazy alternatives of them too, and they're in these vibrant, awesome-looking colors and everything, and they're different shapes. Like some of them are slightly larger than the other ones. The only bills I don't like here in Hong Kong are the tens because they're like this weird plasticky material, and I don't. They like I hate touching them. They feel weird, but I
Yeah,
don't
we
know.
switched to that as well. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I agree.
One thing I wish that so in America they started doing this thing where they added color to all the different bills. So instead of always being green, right? They made the fives purple, they made the 20s kind of bluish, they made the 10s yellow. And I was sitting there just waiting for them to make the ones red. But it never happened.
The 20s are red around here. Like it's green 50, yellow 10, red 20, blue 100.
You know what's crazy
And
is in China, I think their largest bill, at least the largest I ever saw, was their 100s, which is like a 20 in American dollars. And like I had an employer that used to just pay us in cash, so he'd just like hand me an envelope just full of just like a massive stack of hundreds, and I'd have to go like feed it into like a little ATM to get it deposited into my bank, and it was like really annoying. But it was just like comical that like
So
they didn't
there's
have a
no
bigger bill to
1000s?
make it. I don't think
There's
so.
no thousands.
Let me double check. Maybe I'm an idiot, but I'm
I
pretty
mean,
sure.
they're trying to get rid of the thousands in Switzerland
Largest
because they say
bill
only
in,
criminals use them.
Chinese.
But,
Let's see.
I think thousands are useful. Like for example, when I switched banks, I let one bank give me all my money in thousands and the rest in the smaller ones, because I knew that they would delay the transaction and do some shady stuff to still make some money out of that, and that it would be very annoying to them to give me the money up into my hand. And I switched bank because they are fucking assholes. So it was a good day for me.
This is
Even
really
though it looked-
interesting. I'm looking at apparently 100s are the largest in China, and it's because it makes it harder to physically move the money around. That's really cool. I don't know. That's kind of interesting.
Well, it's mean. You should be able to physically move your money.
Korea man says I want red money. Yeah, of course you do, because you are China man and you love their red 100s. I guess they're pink, but you know still.
They have pink banknotes. I don't even know what to say to that.
I really want to see the future though of all these different kinds of competing cryptocurrencies, and they'll be like with like stupid names too, and it becomes like a status symbol to have like the hippest new crypto, and like it'll be pee pee poo poo currency and Dogecoin and shit. Like, I want that. I want that future so badly. People have their little like mini electronic portfolios of just like stupid looking coins with dumb names. Literal like Twitter hashtags become currencies for like a week, and then you switch to the next thing. I think that's exciting.
Dick coin,
Dick coin. I want Dick coin.
cunt coin.
Chad coin. Chad coin's good.
Karen coin.
I want Chad coins and Stacy coins. Oh, Karen coin could be based on like you could use one Karen coin to like skip to the front of a telephone queue or something. like instant access to a manager, and that would be part of its value.
I want to see the manager. Oh, how many Karen coins do you own? Ah, well, go on ahead then, Karen.
Oh, she's got the Karen coin. Bam. But yeah, man, it's just I'm so bummed that the fucking communists ruined anarchy. They're gonna do no police, and they're gonna fuck it all up because they're too much of a pussy to be anti-racist. It's so sad. This headline is just funny. They're guitars, not human lives. Montreal Merchant says getting looted was worth it to fight racism. I don't even know if the story needs to go on from there. And yeah, it's just fuck this article. It's too old. Oh, this was an interesting thing.
like-
Sorry, what?
No, it's just I'm thinking about, like, I know how much. What's the word for what the pricing when what you buy towards what you sell it for? I just assumed that this guy was basically ripping people off with very cheap Chinese guitars, and he's like, actually, the stock in my that place wasn't worth that much. But I'm gonna make a virtue signal out of this instead of just being happy I didn't lose a lot of money.
Yeah, well, and it's like, okay, if that's how you really feel, then just donate the fucking money. Yeah, right? Like, and the other thing too is like by condoning the violence, what about the people who like can't afford that? So it's just it's so stupid. I mean, it's like the correct thing to say. It's the correct thing to say though, right? Because if you say, "Oh, well, it's all worth it to fight racism," then you're kind of like retroactively donating your riot. If that makes sense. Like you're converting it from you being a victim of something to like it being an act of philanthropy.
But it's also something I'd like to add about all the thing about. But we know this. We know that the people who are so-called anti-racist and fight against racism, right? These people are on the side of evil. They're wrong, right? Because the paradigm of anti-racism is one of the most immoral, unethical things that exists, right? It's so bad. Like we know all that. I don't have to go over that, right? But the problem is that a lot of people that are against what's wrong, they are against people like the Black Lives Matter and the viruses and the stuff like affirmative action and shit, right? They are against it, right? But these people, right, they're also claiming that they are against racism, and they're also sometimes fine with legally punishing people for being racist, right? And as long as they are still going to support the idea of anti-racism and being opposed to racism itself, as long as they agree with the enemy that racism is a bad thing that needs to be fought, right? Then, even with the state usually, right? Then they can't really complain when the rights have been violated by the left or by anti-racists, right? They can't claim, but they're not being consistent in the anti-racist, and I am like, well, the problem is that you are also an anti-racist. That's the problem, because being against racism is stupid. And I don't care. I have so little sympathy for people who are against racism and still are on our side when it comes to opposing the mainstream left and the children of the light. They're opposed to that, right? But they still believe racism is bad, and they're opposed to that too, right? I don't really feel sympathy for them pretty much, because they are usually guilty, partially guilty at least, for what's going on. They're partly guilty of holding up the fake mainstream narrative of anti-racism. And as long as they are truly red-pilled, hate the term, but whatever, then that racism is not a bad thing, and you should not be anti-racist, right? You should not be against racism. Then I don't really have much sympathy for them, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, that kind of links back to what we were talking about earlier. But also links into, I've been looking for a way to segue into one of the stories here, and this actually fits in nicely. Did you guys hear about the British neo-Nazis that were jailed for their terrorism?
No.
They got them. They solved racism. They finally found 4 actual neo-Nazis. So that means it's over, right? That means they did it. This is really funny. Do you see them on screen? These people are beautiful.
They
Look
actually
at them.
found 4 neo-Nazis that did something. But yeah, that's something. Like that's hard work these days.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually even did anything. It might just be like a bullshit guilt by association thing, but I'm just looking at the little blurb here. They said the 4 members of National Action, a banned far-right protest group preparing for a race war, have been sentenced in Birmingham Crown Court. Among those convicted were Mark Jones and his former girlfriend Alice Cutter, who once took part in a Miss Hitler beauty pageant.
What's wrong with
Yeah,
I want to see that. I want to see now I'm just a fan. I want to that sounds amazing.
See this. I just want to see what this looks like. They didn't include a picture, right?
Well, yeah, there's a
heard
picture of
about this
her.
on
She
the
looks
radio.
cute.
I
The
heard
skin
about
is
this on the
bad,
radio when
but-
I was volunteering with my stepfather. Like they said something Hitler, Miss Hitler beauty pageant, something thought Hitler was right. Like I'm semi-convinced, to be honest, that a lot of these people are probably like infiltrators or what Americans would call feds. But like,
Yeah, it's
you
a little
never
too
know.
on the nose, right? It's a little too obvious. But
Yeah.
let's see what
And
the
these
Jewish press
programs-
has to say about Miss Hitler 2020.
Sure.
Why is there an ad? God damn it! Of course they put an ad on it. How
But
stereotypical
these government operations, they got so out of hand. Like a couple of years ago, I heard about most agencies looking for pedophiles on the internet were monitoring a fake site that the Australians had put up to, like, as a honeypot. Like they're monitoring each other's fake pedophile accounts at this point.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me at all. God, this website is like the worst layout I've ever seen. I hate this. I just want pictures of Miss Hitler. I don't care about the stupid article. Oh, look, they're all doing the little salute. Oh, they're so cute. Whatever.
Like, why, if they want to have their Miss Hitler pageant, then, well, the simple solution is to not attend. Like, what's the problem? Like, Black Lives Matter is going to have their protest. Why can't Miss Hitler have theirs?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
It's like the same.
I'm frankly.
Well,
Well, and the other thing too is they say, oh, they were preparing for a race war, and then you look at what's happening in
so were Black
America.
Lives.
Did
Yeah.
you just say frankly?
Oh my god, it reminded me of that school.
Ah, that was bad. I know, but it really sounded like that.
These girls are cute. Is one of them Asian? Oh no, they're all white. This one woman in the middle though, she looks like very Eastern European. She has that like cat-like, that Melania Trump kind of look. This one she looks Jewish. There's just like one Jewish girl in there. Who's like what?
Like,
Well,
I
does
don't
she
see
have
it's
a-
like
does she
someone
have a
asked this
drooping
group where is
nasal
where's the Capitol building, and they all pointed at the same time because they're very helpful.
They are just they all just see they're all pointing in a direction. They're just Sorry, Ashley, what were you saying?
I was just asking if she had a drooping nasal tip.
Is that the PC term for it for a big honker?
Yes.
Yeah, her nose is huge. Yeah.
Oh well.
But anyway, I love the idea of like an obviously Jewish woman infiltrating Miss Hitler 2020, but then like all of the white ladies are actually super nice, and then they all just become friends. That should be a cartoon.
I could see it happening.
Totally, because they're just having a pageant. Like, who cares? I love that when you start to Google Miss Hitler, though, it just gives you all the years. So there's just like multiple years of Miss Hitler photos. Maybe that should be a stream. We have a Miss Hitler stream, but I don't know. I don't know how much I even care to
It's
look
a
into
miss
it.
pageant. It's like a beauty pageant. It's not that they miss Hitler, right?
Wait, what? Sorry, what?
They don't actually miss Hitler. It's a beauty pageant, right? Sorry, I'm terrible today.
Terrible.
I should see my.
Boo! I'm just looking at this tweet here. I want to see, is there evidence of them actually being violent? Because preparing for a race war could technically be defensive. Oh my god, this is a 16-page research briefing on Jack
It should
Lanshaw.
be
Is
that
this guy
they
even-
prepare like bombs or were stockpiling weapons, and there was plans found how they would attack something. If none of that is true, I don't actually think they should be convicted. But I don't know.
No, yeah, it's just, let me see. Where do they...
They here want to convict someone for having a Miss Hitler pageant. Can they also convict themselves for having race-based laws?
Okay, here they're
Like-
talking about the actual organization. Described as the most overtly anti-Semitic far-right organization to be seen in the UK in decades. So, still not violent. Founded a youth movement. That's still not violent. Its membership has never exceeded 100 individuals. I'm shaking in my boots. Sentenced to 4 weeks in prison for sending anti-Semitic messages to Jewish members of parliament. They're a public person, and I don't know if that's even, that's like, what, mean tweets? They get prison for that?
It depends on
see.
the laws. Like you can't send anti-Semitic stuff in Germany, so maybe it's the same in the UK.
Okay, so in 2015, one of them, I guess one of their supporters stabbed a guy. But it says NA supporter, so were they even part of the organization? They got a
Did
they got a
hit the
life
law?
sentence for stabbing someone. Wow. Well, I mean, don't stab people. I guess I don't feel that bad. Okay, here they're saying gas subhuman Jews. Salute from Greece. Hail Hitler. Oh, and the N word.
Well,
Oh,
if you
N-word
say
loving
gas-
bitch. I'll hang you and your family. Okay, I mean that's at least a kind of a call for some violence.
Yeah, if it's directed at someone, it can be considered a threat. That makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, I still think saying government is necessary is more violent and more immediately threatening than anything I'm seeing here. I guess besides stabbing someone, I'll give them that. But I don't know, like
Well, if any one of them was convicted for associating with people that threaten someone or associating with people whose supporter stabbed someone, that's a bit shaky. Like you can't
Derek,
choose what people do that support you.
this is going to be brutal, but you need to hear it. Just give up on anarcho-capitalism. It's not happening. It's not going to happen, Derek.
no, it happens. It happens every day.
Interesting finding.
Every moment you're not being mugged or raped is a little ounce of anarcho-capitalism, and it's just a matter of degree.
That's an interesting coping strategy. Yeah.
It's true. It's 100% correct. Okay.
I like the positivity in that.
That's like saying, "Hey, give up on being anti-rape because you're never gonna be in an in a totally rapeless society." It's literally the same logic.
Well, not really, because, like, theoretically, we could eliminate rape with future technology. I don't see
my
how.
God.
Like, what?
I know you're not advocating for it, but this is a horrible thought. The future technology that could prevent rape.
Well,
Well,
most
actually, no,
people
we are. Actually, we are going to, because haven't you guys heard? Silence is consent now. So we just need to keep stretching the definition of consent, and then we'll eliminate rape
Wait.
that way.
Wait, what now?
Haven't you heard? That's the new phrase. Is silence is consent. They're not talking about rape, but I mean they kind of are, because they're talking about, racialized violence. So
Oh my God,
oh,
that's
I
so
see.
beautiful.
That's very amusing. Yeah.
That's actually true. They are saying it's okay to rape. Okay, that's good to know.
yeah.
And
so
also,
so
like-
it's also funny, right? Because this was the same fucking week we had the blackout, right? Where it's like, everybody shut the hell up and let only black people talk on Tuesday. And then they're like, oh, also silence is consent. And it's like, the fuck do you want me to do? Like, what? Like, it's literally like
Shut
that.
up.
Yeah,
But
remember
speak
that?
out.
Yeah. Remember, the cop who like executed that white guy in the hotel hallway, right? And he's shouting at him like, put your hands on your head, stand up, touch your knees, like stop moving, start moving, roll around, do this, do that, right? And it was literally like a fucking like hokey pokey level of like contradictory commands he was giving, and then ends up shooting the guy, right? And it's like literally that's literally Black Lives Matter to white people, is they're just barking random commands based on their emotions, and then they're just gonna shoot the whites, and the white is gonna write, "I'm so sorry, Black Lives Matter," in his blood as he dies.
May I just ask you one thing, right?
That
Do
is
you think
only.
most-
I feel the need to say this. Like, a lot of that stuff is probably like, I'm not gonna say feds or anything, but like some of it is probably actors. I've no doubt that a lot of them actually were sincere, but like, put it this way, nobody where I live was doing it. That is like the anti-white signaling. But yeah.
I would just like to add, it's like, how many people in the chat? I know you know, but how many people in the voice chat, right? How many of them? I'll ask them just a question, right? Know that Black Lives Matter is a racist LGBT feminist organization that does not care for the lives of black men, especially not black heterosexual men at all whatsoever.
Well, that's the
Do you
funny
know
thing.
that?
Yeah, because the implication of Black Lives Matter, right, is you need to be reminded that Black Lives Matter, right? And everybody points out like it's incredibly stupid. It makes no sense. The irony, of course, is if you responded by saying male lives matter, and that carried all of the condescending implication of Black Lives Matter, you'd be 100% correct.
Well, yeah, because if you look at all the men of all races, including the black ones, that are being killed unjustly, right? And that's correct. That's what happened.
Yeah, like the US right now is on fire, and it's literally because nobody wants to stand up to black women. Like, that's ultimately what it boils down to, is everyone's afraid of black women, so therefore we don't get to have a country anymore.
But like, hey, bigger loss, right? But also, if you think about it, right, Black Lives Matter, right? They don't care if men, like, they like those people know that Black Lives Matter is an LGBT feminist group.
Sorry, doesn't who care?
Like, how if they were go to the website of Black Lives Matter, right? There is nothing there about men, black men being killed by cops. There's nothing about that at all, right? They always said that's the reason why they started Black Lives Matter, right? But Black Lives Matter, right, is not about that at all. Their about page basically just claims that they want to dismantle cisgender privilege and have a place free of male centeredness, and want to make sure that mothers doesn't have to work double shifts to get free money by the government, and that that's all they're about. That's what Black Lives Matter is all about. It's all about LGBTQ stuff, whatever, and feminist things. There's nothing at all on their website about black men being killed by cops.
Yeah,
Never.
that's kind of a funny coincidence, isn't it? That all of the things that are supposedly are so great for the black community just happen to be all the things that are good for this like weird Q-tip agenda.
It's also quite classical that when you question the motives, they say, just look at the words. It's just like Black Lives Matter. That's what they're saying. It's like when feminists say, just look at the dictionary definition. It's for equality. Like, no, there's nothing else to see here. Look at
the name of North Korea, the People's Democratic Republic of Korea. Nothing more to see here, right? Exact same argument.
I was just reminded of another interesting coping mechanism you deployed recently, Derek, and I'm going to have to destroy it, I'm afraid. So a few weeks ago, you said something like I was saying something cynical about women or some shit. And you said something like, oh, well, of course, my first priority is men because I'm gay. And I thought that was just really interesting because that seems to carry an implication that gay men, by dint of being attracted to men, will put men's needs and wishes first. And I just thought that was a really innovative cope. Not sure it's one that I'd heard before, even from you, because it just doesn't seem to play out like that in the real world. Like gay men, by and large, aren't allies to the MRM or anything like that. So,
no, yeah, and I guess I'd have to look at the context because either I wasn't thinking or I meant it like somewhat sarcastically. I mean, I guess there's hope. There's a little bit more hope. That you could get gay men to support men's issues first, but
no.
I think so. I think so. It's an easier sell. It's an easier sell to gay men than to straight men.
Well, that is true. I would say that the gay men that are family oriented and community oriented, they are more they were probably easy to be swayed to the MRM, which is very clear, right? But gay men
they would also suffer less on the women because they don't interact with them sexually. Like, look at MGTOW. It's mostly, at least a large chunk, men that lost everything in a nasty divorce. That can't happen to gay men.
Well, speaking of femoids and their tyranny, we have Jen on the stream now.
Hello.
What's up, dude?
Jen, who wants to be the theocratic autocrat of the world one day.
I have been working on some stuff, so I haven't actually caught up to where you guys were at. I'm like maybe 20 minutes behind, but it sounded like from what I heard that there's a bit of an intervention going on with regards to Derek's anarcho-capitalism.
Well, no, I'm always under siege, but I hold my ground.
I mean, don't you think it? Yeah, I think it's true. It's an unwinnable debate. It's like wanting to abolish money, because you can be like, everything about money is bad and money is violence, but still people are going to use it. So I think it's the same with the state, but I can understand why. I mean, is violence just categorically bad though? Like, what's the moral argument underlying?
I mean, that is basically it. It's not necessarily violence is bad, but initiating violence, right? Like aggressive violence. You know, he started it. Like defending yourself, you know, that form of violence would be fine. Which is why, you know, everybody frames their violence as retaliatory, because everybody knows I'm right.
Well, I think you need to push further on this idea and actually explicitly define the boundary, because like when it's how do you know when it's aggression?
Yeah, well, and I think at that point, you know, you have third-party arbiters, which everybody agrees
This is
to.
the Molly memes argument.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, use DROs and stuff. You know, it's not
You
going to be
can't,
perfect. It'll get wrong sometimes, but you know, we already live in that
that's
world.
like that's the free market idol. The free market only applies under very limited circumstances, because it diminishes the commons. So justice doesn't come from free markets; it comes from knowledge. And ultimately, what you want is justice on property rights conflicts. And I don't think you can incentivize that with a profit, because profits are taken over longer periods of time and justice needs to be swift. It just seems like it would not cause the desired result.
I think though, I think history though has proven though that the smaller you have, the smaller the government and the less intrusive it is, you've had more justice.
I agree. The government should be as small as possible. It just it can't be zero.
Yeah, well, and then that's where we have the conflict between the minarchists and the ANCAPs. And I think ideally most people would prefer to see transitions through minarchy to get smaller and smaller, because that'd be the easiest transition. But that doesn't seem to be in the cards. And I have no idea how long it would take to have, you know, quote unquote a narco-capitalist society.
Well, you could have anarchy, quote unquote, if you really want to live in an anarchy, like an idealized anarchy, quote unquote, that would be allowable under my system.
Because mine too, actually.
Oh, there we
people who
go.
live
See?
that way-
Yeah, so that's all good
people who
then.
live that way are essentially, they're neutral to society, right? Because if their net output is zero and their net input is zero, then they're neutral. So if they're just like purely existing, that would be allowable. The only thing would be that they would need to provide able-bodied men for border defense, because that's a socialized thing. It's a group effort. Like if some group is seen to not be pulling their weight for border defense, they're going to be resented.
Yeah, well, and I think there are probably a lot of peaceful ways to enforce something like that, right? Which is,
There's no peaceful way to enforce a border. This is the line, and if you come past it, you're going to get violence.
yeah. Well, I mean, the borders that people have the most incentive in defending would be obviously like their own homes.
There'd only be one border. It would be the geographic region where I had control.
Is a minefield peaceful?
No.
If you have a sign up, maybe if your signage is good, I think that's an important factor.
Well, you'd have a wall or something.
You know what? Everybody talks about walls, and I say, why not moats? I like moats.
Well, you can have moats too.
I think
They're
a
not-
wall
they're
and a
much
moat
cooler.
a moat and
you
a
have a
wall
point.
has a lot of synergy, and then you can put alligators in the moat.
Also, you can have both.
Yeah, why not both? I say, why not both?
Yeah, there's no ban on moats. There's only a couple bans, and I think everyone can get on board with them. There's only a few things I'm not sure about, and that's drugs. What do you think?
Oh no, I think drugs should be allowed. I think all the drugs. I think some drugs should be mandatory. I'm all for people inviting exciting new drugs to solve all of society's problems.
So that's one issue that I see, is how to deal with that, because in the one camp I got guys who want to, like, you know, physically remove all drug dealers, and on the other hand you have like people who just want all drugs legal. So it's
Well,
a bit of
Well,
If the legal drug dealing and drug trafficking becomes a different business, like it becomes a legitimate business, which criminals have no place in, I guess.
And people will get uninterested in it too, you know, like once things become legal, it just kind of becomes boring.
Just look at the Netherlands. Like they have almost only half as many pot smokers as Switzerland because it's legal there. It's seen as a boring thing by many.
the same thing goes for that.
Let's do something illegal that's more fun than this boring legal shit.
Yeah, that's one of those paradoxical aspects of human psychology that we really want free will to be true, even though it's not. So if someone tells us to do something, we have this instinct to ignore them because we wish free will was true.
I usually don't do that because if people don't tell me to do something right, I basically don't want to do it because I think that they might be onto something even though I don't know what it is. I think it's taken like a warning. They don't do this. Okay, they mean that. Okay, if they said no to that, that means that doing that might be dangerous. Because when my parents tell me no, they only told me no when they absolutely had to, right? Which means that something will. So if someone say me don't do that, I assume that that's something that either disrespectful or breaking cultural norms or dangerous. So therefore, I'm kind of like don't want to do it just because somebody tells us. But I might be unique in that case. I don't know.
No,
it's
you're not.
also-
That's normal. It's normal.
Especially with habit-forming drugs in teenagers, it's really obvious that it's not so much peer pressure than the perception of being cool by breaking the law, which is somehow a thing, I guess. I don't really know what the root of that is, why it's cool to break the law.
It's an assertion of independence. It's the pursuing the free will LARP. It's like, oh, I can't do it. I'm gonna do it because I'm. You can't tell me what to do, Mr. Government Man. It's a sort of childish rebelliousness. Like I forget who was just talking about the person who said that they liked obeying the advice of other people. I think there's nothing wrong with that, but then there's people that lie, and then it's like you get mistrustful.
I think I did mention that kind of at the beginning of the stream is we were talking about patriarchy, and I was arguing like even under patriarchal rule, right, where you know there's this lordship and the man can just command whatever they want. It's like yeah, that's still kind of liberating that you don't have to deal with the responsibility. And that's true like on a level that's like even if there aren't reciprocal responsibilities that are stated, just like the act of having to like take initiative and to do things is like taxing and like tiresome.
I just think the only way you're going to get to a situation where people are actually writ large happy to follow orders is if the orders are coming from a place of wisdom.
Yeah, but
Like-
the thing about the old order of patriarchy, where men, like the father, would have to allow the daughter to work, or the husband would have to allow the daughter to work, or the woman to work. It was a funny thing in Switzerland that was only abolished in 1987, and everyone was surprised because no one realized it was still a thing, because there was literally no men doing that at this point. They had no desire to control women in that sense, even though they were legally able to. It was really funny when I learned about this, like, oh, these evil men, only because we abolished these laws, they stopped doing that. Like, they literally stopped doing it decades before the law was abolished, because why not?
Yeah, it's a typical kind of feminist half-truth as they say, oh my god, they didn't ban marital rape until 2020. That means everybody was raping everybody. There were even songs about it and blah, blah, blah. And it's just this like ludicrous, sort of like one-dimensional interpretation of reality just based on like laws. There's countless it would be kind of nice if more people in politics and in law did a little bit of housekeeping. It's weird that there's like this perennial issue of just like, oh yeah, we have a bunch of laws that are like pointless and quirky and weird and irrelevant. You know, like you've seen those, right? Like it's illegal to cross state lines with a chicken on your head and just like weird, goofy crap like that.
That's real? Oh my god.
Some of them are like, yeah, I don't know if that one is if that's a parody or not, but there is some really goofy laws out there.
We should have like 10 laws max. We should only have as many laws as people can actually memorize. Otherwise, they're meaningless.
Yeah, no, that's one of my things too, right? Is for example, people who are all for the social contract, and it's like you literally have to go to like 7 years of education beyond high school to be considered a lawyer who then can do one area of law and isn't even considered qualified to like know anything about all of it, right? And it's like how but by what standard do you consider that to be a viable, useful contract when literally it's like you can't know it, like literally not a single human being understands this so-called contract.
Yeah, it's so weird because around here we have like this saying like ignorance doesn't protect you from punishment. But
Yeah, that's like the
that,
fuck.
that
Why the
kinda
fuck
means
not?
you need to memorize all of the fucking laws.
Yeah,
And if
everyone's
you
like
within
ignorance isn't an
reason-
excuse. I'm like ignorance is a great excuse. What the hell are you talking about, right? Like ignorance is like in every other situation, ignorance is like a totally reasonable thing. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know better. I'll try better next time. Now I know. Like, no, not in law. That's not sustainable because our law is more than fucking 10.
That is true.
I want to see if I made up the thing about chickens on your head. I think I heard something like that.
It's just the chicken on your head just reminds me that there was a case where someone built a chicken coop wrong.
Oh,
Because
it's
as
a duck. It's a duck. A person may not
But
cross state
ducks-
lines with a duck atop his head.
Why?
Oh wait, apparently that's a myth.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing in Switzerland was someone built a chicken coop wrong. And it was even actually better for the chicken, but it was not up to regulations, so he had to tear it down. And I was like, how, if you're a farmer, like, why would you need to study the law? How you build a chicken coop if you're just trying to think of like, I want to make the most animal friendly chicken coop, so I'm gonna do that concept. And like, actually, you didn't follow the regulations. I mean, sure, you did better than the regulations, but you didn't follow them. Therefore, they have to tear it down. Have to build a worse chicken coop. Weird shit.
I mean, I think we could get away with literally like one law, and it's just the non-aggression principle. But no, apparently that's too much to ask for. Apparently that means I think people need to be too smart or something.
No, you need to properly define the boundary between aggression and non-aggression, and that is an infinitely complex problem.
It's
So
okay. It's
you can
not
have one
infinitely
ax-
complex. It's very
you can have-
complex, but not
You
infinite.
can have one axiom. The non-aggression principle is fine to have as an axiom, but then the axiom has to be implemented into an actionable principle, and that takes several steps of deduction. So there needs to be a very clear line drawn between aggression and, like, my system can do that. My system pinpoints exactly where aggression starts. And so I could say, well, you aggressed, you're in the wrong, because I could just judge everything by how I have it set up.
Yeah, and I think if you make the case clearly enough, then I think that I think people can be persuaded if it's intelligible to them. Did you guys
It's
hear about
actually not
I've
it's
had
not
this
downgrade from current law because a lot of law is like within reason.
Yeah,
and
right.
that
Yeah, which is just a
that's the
cop
same
out.
problem.
Yeah, or obscenity laws are a great example of that too. But did you guys hear about J.K. Rowling causing a bunch of drama? This is a little bit
Which time?
lowbrow. I know, right? But what's funny about it is God, like every other day of the week, everybody slams J.K. Rowling for being an idiot. But now that she's doing the whole, the quote unquote turf perspective, now you have all these same people who constantly shit on her, being like, "Oh my God, base J.K. Rowling, this is great," and it's, I don't know, it's annoying to talk about. But this post I found here is really funny. I can't tell if this person is if this person's for real or not. It seems real, but I don't know. You guys.
Do
can,
you find that the turf versus like whatever the other one is debate is a bit like the Christian versus Muslim debate? It's like
I mean,
both sides-
kinda. I guess
what
it
did
depends.
J.K. Rowling say?
Okay, so she tweeted, if sex isn't real, there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to meaningfully discuss their lives. It isn't hate to speak the truth. And, like, it's funny because it's such an inoffensive statement, I think. Because, like obviously, there is, like, observed sex differences. And I think that this is something that I had to go into when I was reading through the Stoltenberg shit. Because they try to, like, take, like, weird things that are atypical, that are somewhat mapped in the middle or whatever, and they try to take exceptions and use that to define a new rule when, you know, the easiest way to make sense of the entire argument is to just say, you can call sex a spectrum, but it's still bimodal. Right? And that allows you to keep male and female, but to also address any of the nuance.
And now that he said, I think I heard about this. Like there was some people arguing like we should replace original women, the word woman with people who menstruate, and it was like, how fucking dense are you?
Yeah, no, that was something she had tweeted earlier. Yeah, she said people who menstruate. Wasn't there a word for that? But I actually think that's fine. Because I do think there is a distinction there. Because, you know, not all women menstruate for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, so that's a terrible term. I hope that the person who proposed that was a troll, because
No, they're really not. They're
well, no. Because if they're talking specifically about issues related to menstruation, then I think it makes sense.
Funny how we managed to get by for the entirety of human history perfectly fine without that.
But
You
we
know?
didn't. But we didn't. Okay, you need to check your cis privilege. Okay,
Okay.
the trans people have been oppressed this entire time.
So, Derek, you mentioned free will, like, at some point a few minutes ago. I was just curious to see if you had a take on that, because, like, I don't really see how, like, classical libertarian free will, like, in an ontological sense, can be reconciled with physics, because, like, it's difficult to know every initial condition in a system as simple as, like, flipping a coin, but you can, like, if you can build coin flipping machines so that you know the outcome every single time, that it definitely will land on heads or tails or whatever. It's just that it's just awkward to do it for something as complex as a brain. But you don't decide the initial conditions of your brain, and since you don't decide the initial conditions of your brain, you know, you don't decide what thoughts you're going to have or so on. I don't really see where the place is for free will in that. Like, to me, this has never really been a question. I'm not sure if it's possible to, like, have a society that's based on the truth of determinism. I mean, I guess, you know, I didn't used to take the idea of useful fictions very seriously, but I guess maybe that's one of them. Like, I don't know if you could have a society based around determinism, even if it is, strictly speaking, the truth.
I think you can. And I also think that there is a role in society for things that are what you could classify as noble lies, which is what you're alluding to, I think.
Yeah.
So I would say that it's very difficult to establish what is a noble lie. I think the free will counts as a noble lie, as long as the intelligentsia understands that it is a noble lie. And the other noble lie is personal gods. Other than that, I don't see much getting argued in the affirmative for a noble lie, because you have to be careful with that argument, because it gets used to justify a bunch of stuff that's not actually all that noble.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think these arguments largely make sense. So I'm kind of generally on board with the determinist train, but I don't really consider myself a determinist. And it's more of just like a lived experience perspective of just the way that we act and are and do things just implies that we have some sort of self-determination, some sort of will. And even if we can't explain it, you know, the lack of an explanation I don't think is necessarily contradictory or dispositive with it. It's just a reality that the way that we are and how we do things and how we think about reality just carries
I
the
can explain
implication.
No,
I
you
can
can
explain
take
it for you.
ownership over your own personal predetermined things that you are likely to do and say and think. But I mean, it's
I mean, I would just
it-
add briefly that what you just said, Derek, isn't inconsistent with its being a noble lie. Like, that is basically what you just described.
No, yeah, and I
Like-
agree. I agree. Well, but
Yeah.
but it's not necessarily a lie because it could still be true.
No, like, I don't see how.
I could conclusively disprove the free will, but there is such a thing as will, and it doesn't need to be free for it to be a useful concept. I could
But I
tell
mean,
you what you experience as free will, but it's not free from the laws of physics. That's the basic argument: is there something going on that's supernatural at the level of human consciousness? And the determinists are basically saying no, and you're saying yes, and you're saying that this supernatural entity is free will.
Well, it's more like I'm saying
I
maybe.
think I think what Dan Dennett would say is like basically is somebody holding a gun to your head and forcing you to do things, and if there's not some extreme incentive forcing you to do this or that or behave in a way that you otherwise wouldn't, then that's all most people mean when they say free will. Like that's that's enough free will basically in most people's minds. I guess that's his argument. But that isn't the classical picture of libertarian free will. It's something else.
May I just add what my personal feelings are about determinism?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I usually basically say it like this. The whole idea with deterministic versus the other thing, right? Basically, is feel that people, right, are fundamentally projects of, their physical body and their environment, right? So, like, if you do something, right, and if you manage to think about something, that thought that you came through, that influenced your actions, that came about because of your experiences, right? But I will still say it's like something that you are doing consciously, because those experiences, those things are you in a way, right? So that means that it's still your decision, even though it was because of what happened to you earlier. And oh gosh, I had it before, but I think I lost it.
Yeah, but that's like saying that you are the thing that is created by these circumstances. Therefore, these choices are yours, even if they are predetermined by that logic, because you, in that instance, are the person that was created by these circumstances.
Yeah, pretty much, and that's why it's still my choice, and I should be held responsible for it 100%. Even though, because I could choose something else, even though it was because of my environment, right? I could still have decided to go somewhere else if I were different, right? But then, if I were different, then I would be a different person, which means that the thing I did was because I was me, and that is because of the environment. So it's still my fault, and it should still be. And I should still be responsible, even though it was pretty much, I became who I am because of my environment, in a way. And my original genetic makeup that created my body and my brain, as well as the environment. It's not so, but technically you are being created in an environment, and that genetic material was formed by some natural selection within an environment. So it's still created by an environment in a way. So yeah, that makes sense. I do agree with that. Your conclusion is accurate.
I guess the way that I see it is that you can explain why we should hold each other accountable for our actions, and you can explain why we make our decisions from either perspective, and you can do it thoroughly enough that there's literally no difference. Like it's weird because to most people the free will versus determinism thing, like, it matters so much, and a lot of people have a lot of anxiety over this idea that, oh my god, everything is determined and nothing means anything then or whatever.
That's
I don't know,
weird, because
but I like weirdly don't care because it just doesn't seem to make a difference.
Like, actually, if someone could predict it, that would make me worry, I guess.
I can sometimes predict what's
Like
going to happen.
if
Yeah,
it
I
was-
think that's a good point. Yeah, because that means it's actually predetermined, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Like if someone could magically analyze all of the circumstance and say, "You're gonna do this tomorrow," like he would write it in an envelope, and I would open it at the evening the next day, and it would describe my whole day. That would probably bother me.
Well, that's going to cause a feedback loop because someone tells you what to do, right? That is going to give you like the options to do it or not, right?
But that's
if
why I
it-
said if they put it in an envelope, not if they told me, of course. Like that would be manipulation of the test. But if someone just placed an envelope underneath my pillow, describing what I have done this day, and it was clear that this envelope was made yesterday, that would bother me.
Yeah, that would actually be quite weird. But that kind of explains why I can sometimes predict what's going to happen very clearly, which is very scary when I do that. Oh gosh, it's uncomfortable. You also do that. You also see something that you think that you basically like see something happened and then it ends up happening exactly the way you think it would happen before it even happened. Or is that just me that have experienced that?
No, I think it's. I don't know if everybody has it, but sadly, I know the sentiment. It's not pleasant, actually.
True. It can be quite interesting when you manage to accurately predict the future. This feels pretty cool sometimes. But that's just because I'm very positive, which you probably have noticed. So I guess that's the reason why I feel good about it, because I feel good about most things.
One thing I do like about the idea of things being both deterministic and predetermined is that it means that like every ludicrous thing that happens in reality like had to happen. I don't know. Because if there's randomness in reality, then like things that happen that are ludicrous, it's kind of like, yeah, of course like crazy things are going to happen once in a while because, you know, we have this random element. But if everything is like predetermined, particularly if it's a god that set it all up, it like makes everything like that much more hysterically outrageous and funny. I guess also kind of tragic. And what I'm alluding to is George Floyd being a porn star.
I was thinking you were talking about the new footage where you see like the footage
That he was
came out, like, a
totally
week
that
ago?
he was totally resisting arrest, and that all these people selectively clipped it to try to argue that he wasn't resisting arrest. Which I get
No,
that.
I
Okay.
mean,
Oh, sorry. What?
The one that was cut off where he's falling down because in the close up you can see he just because he was high on meth he probably didn't see that there was a gap.
Right.
But then the part I mean is where the extra footage where you see Derek Chauvin walking up, the way he walks, the way he carries himself. I think people could very easily predict that out of these four cops, who do you think is going to do a crazy, horrible thing in the next 10 minutes? It's just seeing him walk, like the way he carried himself. Like I thought, like that's something I would have predicted. Seeing the way that this man carries himself, that man is crazy.
That's why I know I could never be in any kind of law enforcement because I would totally end up murdering people. Just like the idea of like you have to like physically restrain people and get them to comply and like put them in cars and stuff, and then they just like drag their feet and they're annoying and they're throwing their weight around and whatever. I would literally snap and murder people. There's like absolutely no way I could ever be qualified.
I could never be qualified because if I were in law enforcement, everyone who claiming that the police are racially profiling people would be accurate because you know me.
I'd be like, yeah, I have to do my job. Like, I'm sorry, we notice patterns. Like make the pattern not real. You know, like they're kind of putting the chariot before the horse. And I know that's a. I mean,
it's actually quite interesting. You know what happened to me when I was robbed. Right? I was just walking in Canton and I was robbed. You know what the people asked me? All the black people asked me. The people that robbed you, were they colored or were they black Africans?
Oh, that's funny. So white is colored
All the
there?
black people asked me. No white person asked me the race of them. Everybody only black people asked me the race, and they always give the black and colored as option. They didn't even give white in as an option. They asked, who robbed you? What race? They didn't say, they said, oh, well, the people who robbed were black or colored. They didn't even say that. Even they gave options, but they excluded the white options.
Doesn't colored mean like mulatto in South Africa?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that's
Well,
what I mean. I was thinking like, what is like? Cause anyway,
Yeah.
Because the
I
point was that
love,
they excluded the option of a white person being the thug.
right. I love all of the old timey terms for races. I like lately. I don't know why, but I like calling black people the blacks. It's just like an inside joke with myself because I know it like riles people up, but it's like that shouldn't be offensive. It's just funny.
But
Wait,
didn't you explain that to
people
me,
say
Jay, really, that
Jews.
mulatto doesn't actually relate to mule? Didn't
That's
you
true.
say something like that?
it
Like,
comes
people
from
are
the-
outraged for no reason by comparing words that aren't etymologically the same.
Or like the word
Yeah.
niggardly, how it doesn't come from the N word. But I'm probably gonna have this stream get banned because I said niggardly, which is not even related to the N word.
And
Probably.
also, the term mulatto, the comes from mulawal and muladi, which was a term by the Moors used by the people just to call the people that were their mixed offspring with the Moors and native Roman people in Iberia, right? They call the mixture between those people, they call them mulawad or muladi, right? And then when Spain met the blacks, they called their native mulatto after because the Moors used the term muladi, then they use mulatto for their own other type of race mixed offspring. Which is where the word mulatto comes from. So yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Paulo mentioned
Yeah, it's just-
Negrito, and now I'm just thinking about how all these terms sound like drinks, and now I wish I could have like a racist coffee shop where all of the drinks have like really funny racialized names.
Hey, bartender, I would like to order a mulatto.
Yeah, what a mulatto. That'd be great. That'd be like a
White side.
latte with some vanilla and mocha
Yeah.
in it, right?
I mean-
Go easy on the milk. I want my mulatto to be dark.
Yeah, I want a dark
I
skinned
mean,
mulatto.
hexadecaroon doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. That's a 16th black.
Oh, I want an octoroon drink that's garnished with roasted mushrooms.
Lol.
There's gotta be something
Maybe
funny
it's
for like
just-
gays too.
Eggnog.
Oh! I want one called the male gaze, and it's gonna be like pink and fruity and like awful.
Like, this all reminds me of the name of the chat called Tikka Masala, where I named all the chats after Indonesian food, and like South Asian and Southeast Asian food, and stuff like that, and all Indonesian kingdom and stuff like that.
But just to go back to the drink thing, why is it still okay to order a black or a white Russian?
That's basically slavery.
Right? Oh no.
I want
I guess
to.
a white Russian could be newspeak could be a mulatto, you know. Because
Yeah,
it is
right?
kind of a I would have no problem switching to that name. I love white Russians. The drinks, not the people.
Well, now you made it worse. Though those are good. I think they're too sweet, honestly. That's the issue I have with most alcohol is it's too sweet. Like when you make it
You
into like
need
a
to make it
cocktail or
yourself.
something fruity.
You need to cut down the Kahlua part and add more water.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. But then the issue too is like the Kahlua is like the expensive component, and I'm like, why would I pay the most money for the thing that like I want the least? And
It's also
then you
the smallest component. So.
yeah, well, and then you have this this bottle of Kahlua which you use for literally one thing, and it's like, oh great, I guess I just committed to drinking White Russians for like the next couple of years, which
Actually, I also make like chocolate candies with it.
okay,
It's really nice when you make like with pralines. What you call them? Like
Pralines,
gift
I think.
boxes.
oh yeah. Hey Jen, is alcohol banned in your theocracy? Because I think alcohol is a drug, and that honestly, if we're gonna ban any drugs, that's the first drug to ban, in my opinion.
I think I wouldn't ban it, but I would just provide education and healthier alternatives.
Like
Because
weed.
it's already, well, I would try to get weed to be the go-to drug because it's the least damaging. But alcohol's been part of our culture for a really long time, so I don't really care. But I would want to like shift the focus of the culture away from like social drinking because that causes alcoholism and stuff. I mean, it can create an addiction, and that is a problem. But solution to that problem is always spiritual, and people have to make
It's-
the decision themselves to improve themselves. You can't force
It's
someone
just
to.
the mental degradation if you smoke too much weed. I know people who do that since many years. The mental capacity is very limited if you smoke several joints a day, whereas functional alcoholics can exist for decades with a much higher mental capacity than.
Yeah, I just don't buy it.
It's just anecdotal, but it really
I
looks
mean, I
like
know
if you
tons of
smoke
pot
too much
smokers.
weed, you get a weird kind of stupid. A little bit is very cool. Too much, weird kind of stupid. Hard to explain.
Or maybe they were
Which-
just stupid already.
I just
Right.
know too many people that are very different that I've known for a long time that are very similar in the way that weed makes them stupid since they all overdo it.
Like lazy, you mean? And indifferent?
Not even lazy like
Like delayed.
delayed attention span, ability to recognize things like a tunnel vision, that the kind that you get when you're really drunk. I know people that have that all the time because they smoke several joints a day with very potent indoor weed. Where I'm like, how the fuck did you not see this thing? Because obviously it's just following a pattern that you repeat, so you just ignore everything outside of the thing that you're focusing on. And it's gotten me very aggravated at times when I was interacting with these friends of mine because I was like, how can you not see the thing that's right in your field of vision?
I think there's a few issues with that. The first is dosage, right? It's like all the methods of people consuming marijuana, whether you're smoking it, eating it, whatever. There's less precision with anything that you smoke versus something that you can drink as like a liquid. And then there's this issue of weed being in your system longer. So it just like you know, it would take a good number of months of sobriety for it to be 1000% out. And then the third thing is that the fact that it's illegal means that there's probably oftentimes like the weed is like you're not getting the same weed all the time. So there's kind of this variety. There's stuff that's added to it or whatever. So I think all those variables considered, that might be explaining the difference there.
True, and I want to make it clear that these people they are smoking a real large amount of very potent weed that is hard to get in most parts of the world. So this is not the standard case of someone who smokes pot. It's just I
Oh my
happen
God.
to know a lot of people who have very potent weed and completely overdo it.
Yeah, the people talking about that in the chat right now. They're saying weed's the problem. It's too genetically honed, and that is true. That the weed nowadays is like 10,000 times stronger, which I think is fine. I think that's a great thing. And I've just found the definition for libertarian. What did I call it? Libertarian statism, authoritarian libertarianism, some extreme form of libertarianism. It's that we're not just gonna make weed legal. It's gonna be mandatory. It's literally the state where we force everyone on weed.
Just a little though, just enough, not too
No,
much.
fuck that. Like remember the government did experiments on monkeys where they put gas masks on all these monkeys and then blasted them with weed smoke to suffocate them and killed all the monkeys and then said, "See, look, marijuana kills." It's gonna be like that.
Oh my god.
The government literally did that. They literally
They really did that?
They literally suffocated monkeys with pot smoke and then used that to argue that
That's
that
like when
marijuana
Edison
kills.
killed an elephant.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like ludicrous. Like you can't make up. Actually, now I want to Google this to make sure I'm not insane.
I mean, I know Edison killed an elephant, but
Did the
fuck.
government kill monkeys with weed? Is my Google search. I'll have to actually.
I mean, it's a fairly safe assumption that you are insane, but
No, insane enough. I feel like you'd have to be crazy to not be a little bit insane.
Don't you think if these
Yeah.
people had something else going on in their life that they wouldn't smoke so much? Do they work?
Yes, they do.
So they work, but then they come home and just smoke all the time. Is that it?
Every second of their free time.
I would put that in the same category as video games. It's a vice, but it's something that people pass the time with, and if they're not engaged in civilization building, then people are going to pass their time in degenerate ways. So the way I see that problem is like it's up to the commons to create pastimes that are not so destructive for people. Because right now nobody wants to socialize because it's always fucking political correctness bullshit that everybody secretly hates, other than like pinheaded authoritarian despots. And so there's a bad vibe. And I would attribute it more to that. So that bad vibe needs to be eradicated so that people want to socialize again. Because it's like there's obviously way more fun stuff to do than just getting high all the time. But if everyone is a buzzkill all the time because of political correctness, maybe there is nothing more fun than staying home and smoking weed all the time.
That's a very fair point. I agree with most of it. It's like around here, things that are fun pastimes that are very cheap. For example, in America, my favorite example is bowling. If you want to go bowling with 4 friends for 2 hours, that costs each individual about $50.
That's so expensive. Ew, why?
And to get high for 2 hours costs each individual like $5. Therefore, like, there's an incentive against going out and doing fun stuff because everything's so fucking expensive here. Whereas if you have a good dealer, getting high is really cheap. Also, getting drunk comparatively is very cheap.
Yeah, but I
And I'm
feel
not
like
saying
you,
weed
I
and
can't.
alcohol more expensive. Just make the fun pastimes cheaper so people will socialize more.
Yeah, when someone says let's go bowling, I just hear let's go drinking because that's kind of what I think. It's like yeah, like you can't bowl unless you got a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other.
Where you can smoke on the bowling range? Fucking hell.
In China,
I
we
miss those
could. It was
days.
great. That was the best thing about China is that people would just like smoke in cars, in elevators, in hospitals. Nobody gave a fuck. It was great. In hindsight, I feel gross just thinking about it. Like you. The only place you can't smoke in China is the KFC.
Why exactly that?
I don't they're the one place where they're like no, like we don't want the cigarette smoke in here. Everywhere else is fine though, but the KFC you can't. Literally one time we were there, this Chinese old lady had like her little Chinese baby and it was like pissing its pants and like she just sets the baby down on the counter with its diaper full of piss, just like piss everywhere while she's like taking all the food and just like picks up her baby and just like walks out with it and all of her food and there's just like piss everywhere and then somebody just like sprays a little bit of water, just kind of mops it around just to like spread it.
wow,
Like
that's disgusting.
that was like those are the health standards, but they were like, hey, no cigarettes, no smoking in here. China's the best. China's the best country. I defy any country to be better than China. You can't do it.
Well, at least you were able to resist the temptation to say China #1 as you almost
China
always do.
#1. See, but I mean that unironically.
Yes, I
That
know.
guy was being a horrible racist. He was being mean to a good Chinese person on the internet, and I don't condone that kind of bullying. That kind of racist bullying, to be honest. You know what? I wish that instead of people going out and robbing and looting and starting fires in honor of George Floyd, what if they had just all made porn in his honor? To honor his legacy.
Yeah, they would probably also have to take meth doing it. So
Yeah, right. Oh my god, that would be great. There should be George Floyd themed porn where you know, you have like your black guy and he has a bunch of meth, and then you have another white guy kneeling on his neck. And then, you know, you just play out all of the important scenes of his life. Got to put a gun to a pregnant woman's belly, all that stuff. If I won the lottery,
Yeah,
I would
it's-
definitely I would pay the $50 it would take to get the actors necessary and the drugs necessary to recreate this art.
I think it was Duke in the chat who said it earlier. Like we had a vivid conversation, so I didn't bring it. Like what was it about painting Floyd as a saint? Like I saw like a piece on television where it said, "Oh, we're recounting all the great things from his life at his funeral," and like. Actually, it
Like
doesn't.
That would
when
be
he robbed you
super-
at gunpoint.
Yeah,
And it was like, what is it with you guys? Like, if a complete fuck gets killed that way, to me, that's exactly as bad as if it was like an angel who never did nothing wrong, because the act of doing it was egregious. Like, it doesn't matter if this man was a thug to me, but the fact that they insisted that he wasn't was weird to me.
I seriously want that. I want someone to try to create a movie of his life, and they're just going through and they're like, well, this is what we got. And what
This
it tells you
Little
is that
Floyd at 8 years old. Let's skip to 22. He helped an old lady across the creek. Let's skip to a week before his death. He paid his rent. End of the movie.
yeah, they were just like really, really waiting for the next Tamir Rice. They're like, man, we just need one more Tamir Rice. Just like Tamir Rice minus the plastic gun or whatever. And then we can have our race war finally. And then George Floyd happens and they just kind of shrug and they're like, well, this is the best we're going to get. We avoid
Yeah, it was
Void
just
said,
weird
wait.
to
She,
me.
she said porn blackout. Does that mean you want a blackout of porn? Or would this be the hashtag for my people making porn instead of burning things down? Anyway, I saw she had a long conversation with Black Knight Fool about like cuck porn and shit, or just
Who did?
cuckoldry in general. Weeaboo Femoid and Black Knight Fool. They're like literally that's all the conversation in the cellar is just them talking about the legacy of Long Dong Silver.
How delightful.
I'm so
So,
glad that I never had any respect or reverence for any of that video happening. I thought that maybe I was being a little bit insensitive, and I've just been more and more vindicated and like not giving a shit.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter Melbourne tells white people no selfies. I love this too. I love all this like random policing of white people in the movement. It's really funny. I get the no selfies thing. That was the thing with the Hong Kong protesters too. Is they want to minimize the number of like pictures and shit of stuff happening.
I have a hot take.
Oh, good.
I think a lot of people want to be enslaved, and they're acting out
I
really bad.
1000%
I
agree.
totally agree.
1000%. Yep.
I was telling Derek about this a while ago. Like, basically, Aristotle has a brilliant defense of slavery, and like, I think it's in. I can't remember, but it's somewhere in like Aristotle's writings, basically a defense of slavery, where he essentially argues, and I agree that there are some people who are they're too stupid to be given any kind of real responsibility for themselves, like to govern their own lives, because they'll just consistently fuck up everything. But on the other hand, they're not like they're not so stupid that they need to just be in left to rot basically in an institution. Like they're just intelligent enough that they can do manual labor or something, and they could be basically indentured servants where they get housing, and the indentured and basically the indenturer gets to govern all of their affairs and like make sure they're taken care of, and then in exchange like the really stupid low IQ people are basically their servants and do manual labor or whatever. And that's basically my interpretation of Aristotle. I guess the way you would say it in modern parlance is like borderline intellectually functioning people, like the people who are in that gray area between normal intelligence and completely retarded. Yeah, they should definitely be slaves or indenturies.
But
Yeah,
it
it's
actually
cruel not to.
relates. Go on.
It's actually cruel not to enslave them because, as you can see, they're not able to govern themselves.
That's
Well,
funny
that's
because
like-
that's
it's
the
very
exact same
interesting.
take that TFM has about women. Basically, is like not only should their rights be taken away, but it's cruel not to.
But it's a very weird parallel to I don't know the English word. We have like these small manufacturers where this like mentally retarded or whatever the correct term is. Don't fight me on that. Where people with mental handicaps work, and they are the only ones allowed to do this very simple handmade stuff that's so simple that a person with that mental capacity can make them. Whereas everyone who is not capable of doing something more complicated than that is basically forced to be unemployed because we outsource that to cheaper countries. And it's always weird to me. Like, we have a certain percentile of the population that need a job sorting the different sizes of bolts because they're simply not capable of doing anything more complex. And now they're just on a welfare system, and it's weird to me. That you have to be legally retarded to be allowed to do that. And they seem much more happy than the people who are on unemployment because they're unemployable. If it makes sense.
I remember like when the preferred nomenclature for such people was special, and that's why I was laughing earlier.
I have a hard time keeping track of what I'm supposed to. Like, my sister works with people like that, and whenever we talk, she says that's not actually how we call them anymore. Like, you told me last year that's what we're supposed to call them. Like, I can't give it anymore. I'm just going back to calling them retards, I guess.
Well, yeah, because retard is a euphemism. It just means slow, and it's like a nice term for slow. So once you've retreated from a euphemism to a new euphemism, you have to take a step back and realize this is just going to happen forever.
But yeah, the problem of people who literally can't do much more than those, whatever you want to call them, they exist. The factories were actually a great thing for them because they had a lot of very menial, simple jobs that needed doing. And many of those jobs haven't been replaced with machines yet. They've just been replaced with Chinese or Indian or Taiwanese or whatever. I don't understand where stuff is made anymore.
One of my favorite jobs was just doing data entry. Like, literally, I was just copying and pasting and, like, alone at night, and I'd listen to, like, creepypastas that were really cringy and awful, and it was a nice existence. And I would just copy and paste all day and just listen to my podcast, and I liked it. It was kind of nice. It was nice and mindless, and, like, there was pretty low stress. It was a fun job. So, like, I think that's fine. A lot of people are, like, too neurotic. They'd, like, actually lose their fucking mind just sitting alone in a dark room copying and pasting all day. But I was the fastest copying and paster in the West. It was great. Just sit there, just do my little chicka. And then when they're like, hey, you're really good at copying and pasting repetitively a lot. Do you want to try and do a real job? And I was like, okay. And I was like, this is so stressful. I fucking hate answering these emails and talking to people. And now I have to take a phone call. Like, I don't want to fucking talk to people. It's like they're so stressful and awful. I hate it. They have these, like, demands, and they're all particular, and, like, nothing is, like, the same. Like, it's just, I couldn't handle it. I was like, fuck this. I'm gonna go to China and hang out with babies all day because this is, like, way easier than dealing with adults who are obnoxious.
It's actually, even for people with a more advanced intellect, repetitive work has a kind of a zen side to it. If your mindset is aligned to that, like I kind of like doing stuff like that as well. But obviously, you can't make a living doing that. So I have to do stuff where I actually have to use my mind to automate that shit and take work away from people who like doing that. And I kind of hate that.
Yeah, no, people are just like, don't you get tired of talking about the weather and dinosaurs and making poo-poo jokes all day? And I just like make dinosaur noises at them. I'm like, no, like, this is great. It's
This is great.
I am Poo-Poosaurus. It's rainy today. Ah! That's what I went to college for.
Hey, they didn't break your spirit, so that's something.
You know, that's about as well as you can do. Man, this sucks because, okay, I was listening back to my other podcast since I started, like, using my Bluetooth. And I think that's what caused the audio issue. And it makes me really upset because I have to use my fucking headphones for this. And, like, the pressure it puts on my head is giving me a headache. Ugh. I have the hardest life.
You could actually use this to solidarize with yourself with the black female community in America, because they do those weaves where you have a headache for like 2 weeks after they do them because they do them too tight. So you know how they feel. You know how it feels to be a black woman when you put on your headphones.
Oh, there we go. I'm. This is part of my solidarity. It's literal oppression. Holy shit! Black Knight Fool has written a whole novel in the cellar. Longer than usual. It started with a couple of angry faces.
Don't read it.
Should we just read the whole thing? No, that's there. Anyway.
I will be right back.
I'm just offended that he's there in my Discord and not listening to me on YouTube. Black Knight Fool, where are you?
Well, he should join the stream, but I will be right back.
I know, I've been bullying him into coming onto a stream so we can talk about the lesbian question, and he doesn't want to do it.
Just before I go to bed, so Derek, did you and Jen discuss like quantum mechanics or something at some point?
We have a little bit. Mostly it's her trying to pill a cat. Well, not really that dynamic, because I try to listen, but I'm very, very weak in the hard sciences. So I kind of dip my toe into it, and I try to get a little bit of it. And I think I have a good picture of the general idea, but I'm not, like, well-versed enough on, like, the nuances of it to be able to really, like, fully endorse it, right? Because I feel like you have to have a strong enough knowledge to be confident in it, you know? I feel like Jen, is she still in here? I feel like when you're explaining it to me, Jen. Yeah, because when you're explaining to me, I feel like it's probably like I'm forcing you to do the kind of explain it like a vibe version, which I hope is valuable for you.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, because that's kind of the demand. But whereas if you talk to JF, yeah, it's fun. I like your conversations with JF because I feel like he has enough of a knowledge of it that you can kind of move through it at a faster pace, and then I can see it a little bit more clearly that way. Whereas if you're explaining it to me, it's kind of like things have to be slower and broken down, but then you kind of lose the momentum of it being explained more quickly.
Well, sure. I mean, it's like a complete shift in philosophy. You have you have to set the axioms, basically.
I just wanted to mention, might be interesting to bring up. There's a problem in the philosophy of like consciousness called the binding problem or the combination problem. It has several different names. I think it was originally discussed like in modern philosophy, not going all the way back to the Greeks or anything, but by Kant, which is basically how to account for the unity of conscious experience. The fact that when you see a red car, for example, there are all sorts of different things going on, like red encoding neurons and edge detectors and all this kind of thing. And it's all being strung together somehow into a unitary perceptual field. And there's no real way to account for this by the lights of classical mechanics, just because all of the neurons are in close proximity to each other and they're connected to each other. That doesn't seem sufficient to explain it. It's why there's this German philosopher, Eric S., impronounceable name, I forget. He says if materialism is true as it's normally thought about, then the United States is probably conscious. Most people wouldn't take that prospect seriously, not many people. And in which case it's like kind of hard to make sense of this on the classical view. But there's a British philosopher called David Pearce who thinks that basically binding, as I've just described it, is a consequence of the brain basically exploiting quantum coherence. That is, that in the same way that the sum of multiple states of a quantum system is also a valid state, which is how you get like the Schrodinger's cat thing, both dead and alive. He thinks that there are these neuronal superpositions that, like, for instance, when you're looking at the red car, the red encoding neurons and the edge detectors are in superposition with each other, and that's how you get this sort of the unity of perception that we see. And one of the main objections to this, I guess, is that quantum coherence shouldn't last very long. Like, thermal decoherence should kick in really quickly, on the order of something like picoseconds, like 10 to the minus 12 or 15 seconds or something like that. But I don't think that's a problem per se, because it's not like you would know any different, because like even if you're just watching a film 30 frames per second or whatever, so nowhere near that finely grained, like you don't see the individual frames. So yeah, I don't know if that made sense. Sorry.
It did make total sense. It's
I would love if I didn't miss the context, because that sounded interesting.
well, he's talking about the problem. Like, I mean, they're trying to find the root of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And the question is, what is the nature of consciousness? And there's a lot of, I mean, this is the problem, is like, how is it possible we can make decisions as quickly as we can? Because the people that study the brain, they have not had any success in isolating a mechanism of consciousness from that. So that's like broad strokes where the problem is, and I'd say I pretty much solve it, but it requires you to have a different philosophy, i.e., it's not really a different philosophy. It's just you have to accept that the mind is different from the body.
I guess for me, it was always, since I studied computer science, I always assumed like the genetics that you're born with are basically like an API, and your development is basically like a rogue programmer making something that interfaces with all the stuff on the go, which could explain a lot that goes wrong. And some people have much more efficient ways of thinking, much faster ways of thinking, which might just be accidental developments as they grow.
I have to go to bed, by the way, so I'll see you guys later.
Oh,
Well, it was good
Yeah,
to have
that
you
was-
on. It felt weird not having you for as long.
Thank
lovely
you.
talking to you. Sleep tight, man.
And you. See you later.
This is
Well, the
kind of
question-
funny. I pulled up my old stream, Show and Tell, which has like a weirdly high number of views. I put lesbian in the title, and then suddenly everybody cares. I'm just gonna put lesbian in the title of every fucking stream now. But they tagged the music in the video, the L Word theme song, which is like my favorite song of all time. Anyway, sorry.
You could go like clickbait, like lesbians will hate to hear this or something. Like you have to make up a clickbait
Alright.
thing to add to
Lesbians
the
hate
title
this
every week.
channel because we're all dicks. That's why. Girls in tight dresses who drag with mustaches. I love that song. Women who long love lost, women who give. This is the way, it's the way that we live. Sorry, I have to finish it when I start it. I'm done.
I don't even know the song.
It's so good. It's by Betty. It's like literally my favorite song. I'm gonna make it my alarm clock when I wake up. Then I'll get pumped. It's like my Rocky theme song. It's like fucking Eye of the Tiger for me.
Oh, Black Betty. Damn, wow.
It's by Betty, just Betty. I think it's like her only song.
One-hit wonders are wonderful.
Right? Like that chick who does that song, "You'll never see me again." Like that was totally accurate because like we literally never saw her again.
That dude just saying, "I'm somebody that you used to know." Actually, it's not accurate because I didn't know him.
No, somebody. Yeah, exactly. That they disappeared too. I mean that song kind of sucked. That's like the secret nobody wants to acknowledge.
No, I hated that song.
Well,
I
apparently
just found
Betty
it
is a
nice
band.
that
That makes them really cool. That's why they had that cool guitar solo in there. I listened to a little bit of Cupcake. I think it was like noisy, wasn't it? If I remember right. I don't listen to music though. It makes me dumb. Which, case in point, I got distracted because I saw the fucking L Word theme song, and then my brain just like went to mush. We were having a cool conversation about empiricism and our psychologies and like cones and edge detectors and shit. Then I just derailed it with, "Hey, how about this lesbian song?" Yes, we, but Carly J. Repson was also kind of like a one-hit wonder because she had oh, what was that song? Now it's bothering me. It was like a telephone song or something. Oh, "Call Me Maybe," that was it. God, that
really
song
like it.
sucked.
it wasn't Banana Phone. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I hated that song.
No, I love this song because it's
"Call
like
Me Maybe" is terrible.
no, it was really good because I found a lot of good association with it, with a lot of my friends I had at that time, right? That like the association I had with them about with this song called Me Maybe, right, was really strong. I have an emotional connection with the song. That's why I really like it.
I actually do too. I was working at a toy store at the time, and our boss was like, "Hey, do you guys want to go to a field and practice throwing discs?" And then one of us had a convertible, and we were blasting the song, and had like our white girl moment. So I have a positive association with that song, but I still hate it. I was so unqualified to work at that store. We sold yo-yos, and one time they were like, "Hey, you need to learn all of the basic yo-yo tricks. That's your job for this shift right now." And I was, and then like 8 hours later, they're like, "All right, show us what you can do." And I'm like, "I can get it to go back up again." And they're like, "Okay, try these instead. Try the Diablos thing." And I was like, I can make the thing go bouncy, bouncy, up, and down, down. And they're like, that's not a
Have you ever
trick.
seen the Asian slinky sellers?
Yeah, no, I can
They
do none of
They
that.
do all these amazing things with slinkies. And like, that's just, that's the reason why kids like, "Oh, wow, so cool." And then they buy them and it's like, goes to the cupboard or whatever within a week because this guy actually had to practice for half a year to do those amazing tricks. But that's how
My
you sell
job,
this
they
weird
put
stuff.
me in charge of doing like magic trick themed lessons. And I'm like, I literally can't do any of this. And they're like, "No, you see this thing with the fake thumb and you move the thumb?" And I'm like, "I can't, it's too hard." Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Just kind of shoot from the hip. And yes, I remember when Gangnam Style broke the internet, because I was a fan of K-pop, and then everybody was a fan of K-pop, and I felt vindicated, but nobody cared. Nobody wanted to hear any Lee Jung-hyun. No one wanted to hear any 2NE1. Nobody wanted to hear any BoA. Nobody wanted to hear any LE to the XY, and you know she's so fine.
Yes. I've never bothered to analyze why Gangnam Style became so big.
Oh, it's great because it has good bass.
I love that song. That was amazing.
This is
I
the issue,
remember
yeah. No,
I learned-
homosexuals are the keepers of pop music because we demand bass. That's
I think it was
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was like self-deprecating.
that too. Yeah, it was very funny. But I think most people they didn't really care what the meaning of it. It just had like a catchy
it is
beat.
homosexuals. Like, do you know like homosexuals created house music by some guys sent them a tape of Giorgio Moroder's what was it? I don't remember the song name, but they someone in San Francisco got that song and they said, can you ask the guy to make a version that's like a full LP side? So he just made a very long, very monotonous song that became the template for house music, because apparently gay people in San Francisco clubs loved listening to that, and it became a very popular genre just out of the fact that some gay people liked it.
My favorite song I've ever heard in any club is 我的好兄弟, this like crazy stupid remix of it. And like literally no bar or club anywhere in America has played music as good as the bar in China did. And then I come here to Hong Kong and I'm like, yeah, I want to find a bar that plays like Chinese music, and they all play like Billboard Top 200 shit. And it's like, god damn it, if I want to go to a good club, I have to go to China again. Because
Actually,
China number one, unironically. Pro China stream.
Weird connections with places that play good music. Like when I was 18, we were like on the end of school trip, and a friend of mine, we were in Prague. He said, I know this brothel where I don't have to pay the hooker, I just have to pay 40 euros to fuck any hooker. Like it's a membership thing, and I'm scared to go there.
You have like a fucking membership card for the brothel.
It's actually the one featured in Hostel too.
God, that's really funny. So then you have like a punch card, and they like stamp it. It's like, all right.
The business model was that you're broadcast on the internet as porn.
God, that's so funny.
And he just, I'm tall and threatening looking, so he asked me to come with him to the bad part of Prague. So I said, yeah. Do you know if they will just let me wait at the bar because I have a girlfriend and everything? And he said, yeah, I checked all that. Like, you're the obvious person to ask to come with me so I don't get robbed or kidnapped. So I did that. And I was sitting at the bar as I saw on the screen him waiting for the right hooker. It took him like 2.5 hours. Man, fucking picky guy. And the music was great though, and the beer was cheap as fuck. I was like, can I come here again tomorrow just for the music and the beer? Like, I have no interest in fucking any of these hookers, but this is a great place.
Like, no, you gotta fuck a hooker. You gotta buy one drink and one blowjob, okay? We got rules.
I mean, I don't know who ran this place, but they were amazing people.
I have a theory that the reason that the bars in China played such good music has to do with the fact that so many of the Asian men there, they really fuck up your gaydar because they look really they look like homos, a lot of them. And I think that there's like a spillover. Like I think that something got lost in translation and people just mistook gay culture for like high class society. Because there's a lot of like, for example, like you'll be in the bar and there'll be like two Chinese dudes just like grinding on each other because they think that that's just like how people in the West dance, right? Because
I just imagine the first Chinese person to see Boy George saying, "Oh, this is normal person." Like, I don't see how Boy George looks gay in the Chinese standard.
Or like all white people look the same and they just happen to only see like the gay clubs. They're like, oh, these are the most fun places, and it's like, yeah, but they're gay homosexuals. And like, oh, we don't know what that means yet.
I also would like to add that gay clubs are significantly more white than other parts, because when I'm in a gay club in South Africa, the only black person I could ever see there was the cleaning lady. No value judgment, just reporting of fact.
Yeah, but gay clubs around here, my sister dragged me to a lot of them. The only thing I disliked was some random dudes grabbing my ass. Like,
yeah, I hate
other than that, they're quite nice. The music was good. The ambience was nice. Just getting your ass grabbed, not my thing, but yeah.
Have you guys heard about the Seattle Autonomous Zone?
Oh, that's yeah. I have an item related to that. About
They're
their
trying
leader.
to establish anarchy.
Did you hear about their leader
probably
though?
Anarcho-communism. And there's a warlord now named Raz Simone, It's been 2 days.
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
are
yeah.
Portland.
Yeah. I heard about that, right? Yeah. So the police like seeded it and then like fucked off or whatever. And then I think within like a day, one of their leaders, I have these tweets up here on the screen. It's this low effort transsexual. I'm being a true scum, I guess. Whatever. They tweeted, "Goodbye, everyone. I'm sorry. I'm a serial abuser, and I don't really believe anyone can get better from a situation like that. I'm going to peacefully end my life so I won't hurt anyone else. Like people say, oh, you're not an abuser, but considering literally every partner and most of my friends I've had have said that I've been abusive, I'm pretty fucking sure I'm an abuser." So anyway, they like got outed as like a awful, horrible person and were canceled immediately. And people were joking about that. They were like, "How long until, it's like a little Mogadishu just rape capital situation?" And apparently, less than 48 hours or whatever.
Yeah, they're saying that people have to pay protection money, otherwise they'll get branded as a racist.
Oh my god.
So it's basically the ANCAP meme happening in real time. So hopefully,
No, these are
lesson.
ANCOMs. They were never anarchists. They're just a bunch of edgelords and anti-racists and commies. They stole our name, man. They stole our name. They stole our symbols. They stole our hair and our music.
But why you want the same hair as music as that? Because they usually don't have that.
No,
Also,
we
don't
had it
forget the
first.
earrings. They even stole the things that we took from other cultures because we made it our own. So therefore, they stole it from us.
That's good.
Dude, I swear to God, within like 20 years, all of the left-wing so-called anarchists, all the left libertarians, they're going to be like championing Ayn Rand. They're going to be like, yeah, Atlas Shrugged is about communism. It's about leaving and creating your own communist society. Like there's literally nothing they won't appropriate. And then like they're gonna try to like make us own up to all of their bullshit constantly, and it's like it's just so tiresome and annoying. But
The
no,
same
they're
thing
not.
would
They're
happen if
super
people
statists, is
put-
what they are. They're statists. I don't own them. The
The
statists
same
own
thing
them.
would happen if it was an ANCAP thing. There would immediately be a monopoly on violence established. Otherwise, there would be outright war. And then once the war's over, there's a monopoly on violence that the state possesses.
It depends on the culture. It depends on the culture. There are
No, it
cultures that
doesn't.
can.
Always
Oh,
that
it
way.
totally does. It totally depends on the culture.
You show me one culture that functions without a state.
Well, most
Well,
shopping
but-
malls.
Invented. Then culture
Define functions.
Yeah, culture doesn't exist without a state. The state is the
No,
source
but
of culture.
what do you define as functions?
As in, is a contiguous group.
So, the actual Bushmen on that island where they shoot everyone with arrows that tries to come there.
They have a
Do you think
strong
they have a
dictator
state?
there too. They have one guy who's the supreme alpha, or they have the one girl who's the supreme alpha. Because I have no idea how they run their civilizations, but they have some
Nobody does. Yeah.
structure and a monopoly on violence. And as soon as you don't have a monopoly on violence anymore, that's when a war breaks out and civilization breaks down. The punctuation of it is either there's civilization and peace or there's war and civilization is breaking down.
So here's the counterexample is I would say, like, for example, my friend here texted me like, oh, hey, your hometown is going to get rid of their police. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be fucking awful because, we have a bunch of like anti-racism combined with a multiracial society, which is like the worst combination ever. Whereas here in Hong Kong, it is it's very ethnically diverse, but you actually could get rid of the cops here. And in general, obviously there's a larger political issue at play, which is that China is going to take it over. If you recognize the right of any government, then there's no reason they shouldn't, honoring that treaty or whatever. But the actual local police here, they don't seem necessary at all. There's like almost zero crime, and it's like amazing that this was achieved in Hong Kong despite being multiracial, and it's because we don't have this culture of anti-racism to such a degree as we have in the West. So like this is an example of a place where like they could actually pull off what they're trying to pull off in Minneapolis. but you know, but
I actually
no,
agree with that.
we
One
can't
of
have
the
nice
main
things.
One of the main problem with South Africa is also shit is because of the whole like, narrative of anti-racism. That's the reason why it's shit too. I agree. That's you have a very good point. I do agree 100%.
There's also 2,000 Africans in Hong Kong. Not really comparable, is it?
Well, I mean, kind of, right? Because it's just like a city,
Not
not a
really,
whole
no.
country. But we have Indians and we have the Southeast Asians and the other
Yeah, but
Asians and the
Indians
mainland
are-
Maybe
Chinese. And we got
Singapore,
degenerate
which is
white
more
people.
mixed. Like if you
Indians
look
are
at Singapore, that's
genetically-
more mixed.
the same as Europeans. Africans aren't.
What do you mean? I'm confused by your argument that
Yes, I'm
might
white
be
pilled on the
really-
blacks, okay? I'm white pilled on the blacks. I think they
My
can
point is
manage
that
to
the
not loot and
demographics-
rape as long as there's no anti-racism.
No,
If
I
they
meant
were-
Jen. Like I just
Same
I don't know why I just
have
didn't
the
get
same
the point. Same demographics, same results. That's the standard. I'm sorry, just I might have.
What I'm saying is that if you have the same demographics, your result will be approximately the same, unless you have a different legal system.
That makes sense. I can agree with that to a certain extent.
And Hong Kong's not comparable to the United States because there's 2,000 Africans in Hong Kong. It's a population of like what, 0.001%?
And it's a lot more ethnically homogenous than like America in general. But I don't think it's strictly the demographics though. I think that the culture is a huge issue of it.
I mean, the demographic fact, when you look at Switzerland, when this whole discussion started because of George Floyd, they had to go to the French-speaking part because of a lot of French-speaking colonies. People tried to come to the French-speaking part of Switzerland, and
It's 95% Chinese by Wikipedia.
but even the
So that's
blacks they could
multicultural?
find in Switzerland.
95% Chinese is multicultural?
Is it 95%?
That's what
It
it
seems
says.
it seems a lot more ethnic-y when I'm walking around.
Like, how big is Hong Kong again? Like, is it just all the same density? Is there like outskirts? I don't
Yeah,
know much
I
about
live
Hong
in
Kong.
what might be considered outskirts, although it's actually near the most populous place, but it's like, I don't know.
Oh, you know what? It's gone down to 92%.
There
And
we
the next-
go. There we go.
Yeah, but you've got 6.7 million Chinese, and your next highest demographic is Filipino at 184,000. It's not comparable at all.
Yeah, but the Filipinos, they're pretty rowdy.
Are they?
No,
they're
not
only
at all. No,
2.5%
they eat those
population.
weird duck egg things, and I think that's about it.
Those people are imported for specific labor-related purposes. Filipino, Indonesian, white, Indian, Nepalese, these people are all imported for subject matter expertise in a particular field with a lack of talent. Now that's
Yeah,
a
I guess
specific
maybe I'm
market.
overestimating because like if I walk around on my day off on a Sunday, it's just like there's so many Muslims like everywhere, and it just gives me this sense of like there's no way it's 90 whatever percent. But I guess maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe yeah.
That is
That's
an
fair
anecdotal
enough.
perception factor. This affects everyone. Like,
Well, I think I can explain that because when I was living in Bukop, which is a place in Cape Town, which is over 90% Muslim, most people I saw when I was walking out in that area were Muslims, right? At least Malays, right? Which, right, most Muslims. That was not really the case, right? So the fact that it just seems that it was so Muslim, right? That's just because I was living in Bukop, right? But I was living. Then when I moved to different parts of the city, right? And when I moved in other parts of the city, right? Before and after that, it didn't seem to be that Muslim at all, and that was because the Bukop is having a Muslim era for like 300 years, right? So it just felt like it was like that, right? So even if it's like the city, this place is 93% Chinese, right? You can live in a specific neighborhood or an area that is not, and then it might not feel like it is 93% Chinese, if that makes sense. The same way that when I lived in Bukop, it felt like it was so Muslim, but if I went out of Bukop, it didn't feel like that at all.
It was the lived realities. They're a thing. Like I told you about this guy when I was working as a sound engineer years ago in a small town where I felt like this main sound engineer was basically Islamophobe. That term didn't even exist back then because he was ranting on about the Muslims. But I worked at that place a couple of times and I realized this whole town has been taken over by Muslims. Like they created like a ghetto there. And they became really anti-Swiss, and he grew up there, so he was upset about it. I was like, after a few times working there, I understood this is a legitimate feeling. Like it is not even wrong. Like this man is being forced out of the town where he was raised, which is weird. But if you look at the whole country, it's not a big problem. But if you go to a region where it's very concentrated, it is.
Yeah, the same thing where I was living. Actually, that was a more safe area because the Muslims never commit crimes here. It's always like other people, like the only people that commit crimes in the Muslim areas are always other people going in there and they commit crimes, right? But usually when all the Malays are out and about, nobody go in there and commit crimes because they don't want that to happen. Because like so then when my mother was like out in Buka, right, and then a lot of people went into the mosque, right, she actually could see that a lot of people were like surrounding her and her friend and was trying to rob her because she made the mistake of going to Buka when it was not many Malays or / Muslims out and about, which meant that she became unsafe when they went away.
Oof.
All right, I'm back. I've been listening. My camera turned on. I don't even know when I did that. That's weird. Has it been on
Or did
the
I
whole
didn't
time?
see?
Yeah, that was really weird. Turned on by itself. Goofy. I think when I clicked on OBS again, it like just opened randomly. Anyway. Sorry, I had to take my headphones off because I'm starting to get a little bit of a headache. I don't know why. I think it's just the pressure on my head or something, or dehydration. I don't know. But yeah, that was weird about the autonomous zone, and I guess there's some internet drama behind it, which it might be overblown because people are kind of trying to make a story of it, but I don't know. I guess I'm removed enough from all this shit happening that I'm just gonna try to find the funniest angle possible and laugh at it, because what other good is there? It's not like, I don't know. I guess caring about it seriously gonna matter.
Do we have more stuff to go over? Like I don't know if we're rambling.
Yeah, well, let's see. The next few things I had was there was this story about an Irish teenager who got stabbed. Actually, we'll make this the last topic here.
But may I say something before we move on to that?
Yeah, sure.
It's funny when you said you're true scum. It's actually quite funny because Fliegen, you know the transgender girl on my Discord server. She told me a funny story. She told me a story that she went into a trans place and then she introduced herself as a true scum.
What is that?
I mean, isn't every tranny a true scum, basically?
Pretty much.
All the pretty ones. That's how you can tell. All the pretty ones are true scum.
Yes. And even some of the like half pretty ones that are still decent people tend to be as well.
So this is about being passing? I don't know.
Kind of. The idea is that if you're not putting any effort in, and you have like a standard for what should be considered a transsexual, then it's like you're saying people aren't truly trans unless they do X, Y, and Z. And people who are like the Danielle Moscatos of the world are clutching their pearls over it, saying, well, I don't have money for a razor to shave, but I'm still a tranny.
It's like it's ma'am, dude versus Blair White or something.
Her name is Serotonin. Yeah,
Isn't
that's
the
what
next
they're doing it.
name Tiffany Moore?
I actually kind of unironically like that one rap song that they put out.
No, it is ma'am. I think I actually a star.
I'm gonna beat you up outside the store. It's ma'am. Whoa.
But yeah, this story here is, I guess, an Irish teenager was. God, these fucking ads keep showing up. They were stabbed by a gang of black youths in a park. And what's interesting about it is, I guess, that the government's come out and like censored a lot of social media posts about it too. So it's like
So-
not only was there this issue of this like gang violence, but like to post about it or talk about it on social media, like the government's like shutting it up.
Like it was that Irish youth that got their face sliced up and stabbed a bunch of time and magically survived, or is it a different story?
This is pretty funny. As the girl attempts to protect him, the one filming tells her to shush, bitch. Which, like, I love the idea that they say shush, but bitch, like, I don't know. Like, sorry, that's...
It's like posh and
Inappropriate.
ghetto in the same sentence.
Yeah, it's like saying, like, excuse me, bitch. It's like, why are you being polite? Thanks, asshole. If it's ironic, I guess it
I would
makes
implore
sense,
you to be
but-
considerate, whore.
Exactly, yeah. But wait, so the cameraman, so I guess they were in on it? I guess they filmed their own crime, which is part of ghetto bingo, is like people committing crimes and filming their own crimes.
You mean like the time where a bunch of Black Lives Matter people tortured a mentally disabled guy who wore a MAGA hat like 3 years ago?
Yeah. I guess this guy, it looks like this little teenager, this kid, I should say. It looks like he survived and he's recovering. So that's good. And it looks like the person who was charged with stabbing him got off with like a really, really light charge and was bailed out immediately. Oh, look at this name. Donchad O Laugher. Of the Cork South. God, look at this name. This name is so Irish, there ought to be a law. My God.
Irish.
I'm gonna post this name in the chat so we can see the real crime is this name. Look at that. How do you even say that?
Don't slide all large hair. The same faint hair therefore Cork South and a long-time advocate for journalists and social media regulation claimed that the video should not be shared out of respect for the victims and have spent spreading the names of those involved could apparently endanger the investigation.
Why would spreading the names of the people involved endanger the investigation? What fucking sense does that even make?
Don't shall like hair. Like hair. I think that's how you pronounce it.
So they lack hair. Well, what would endanger the investigation? Like
Yeah.
they do that all the time, like with supposed rapists or whatever. Like the news just blasts their names and their identities out of the place, and 2 years later, we know what happens. So why is it not correct to do it here? Like I'm generally opposed to revealing the identities of victims and perpetrators before any clear situation has been established, but why is it different here?
Yeah, like an argument could be made, but I think that's what people are pointing out as the double standard, because it seems to be a ruse. It seems that they just are looking for an excuse to cover this up.
Irish
Well,
language.
this is the kid that got his face sliced up as well, right? Or are there two cases?
I think they cut his face. There's a video, but I don't want to play the video because I think that might cause an issue with YouTube.
I was gonna watch the video, but at like 5 seconds in, I realized I don't want to see this. I don't even know who posted it. I just very soon.
Yeah, I found it
realized-
and
I don't
posted
want to
it,
see this. This is gonna haunt me.
Oh, and that was the other thing too, is there was a GoFundMe set up, which apparently, I think GoFundMe shut down.
Well, it's actually quite simple. If someone is of European descent, they're gonna call it this. It's far right.
Yeah, okay, they shut it down, but then reinstated it. So, okay, wait, sorry. The campaign was reinstated, but suspended until further investigation by GoFundMe. Which that's
Like,
pretty
what do-
funny. I mean, GoFundMe has a terrible reputation for vetting the people who put shit on their website. And it's funny that this is one that they're scrutinizing.
What would be an example of a terrible campaign on GoFundMe? Because
Oh, there
I
are so
only
many
know
frauds. Remember that viral video or whatever of the story of like this woman who was out of gas and this very poor homeless man happened to be there and gave her his last $20 so she could get gas to go home. And then like they made this big viral story about it and everybody was like, "Oh wow, this is so wholesome and blah blah blah." And then it turned out to be a massive hoax that they planned the whole thing in order to get a bunch of Kickstarter donations or whatever. So that one might have been Kickstarter and not GoFundMe or something. But it's almost like hate crime hoaxes.
like Juicy Smollett.
Yeah, shit like that, right?
Funniest name ever. Such an ugly name. Fuck.
I actually
Yeah.
recently learned that his father is an Ashkenazi Jew that married a black woman. So all of his children have like this double victim complex, which is funny.
I saw a GoFundMe by a single mom looking for money for a weave. You know what though? Is she takes the money and buys a weave with it. I think that's fair game, you know? As long as it's like a reasonable limit, right? You're not gonna buy like a $200, $300 fucking weave, you know? You get something from the Walmart, get something reasonable.
I was gonna make my friend a weave, but then we couldn't see each other because of the lockdown. And then some of my classmates were also my roommate because I lived in student accommodation. Then gave me a haircut, so now I can't make a weave for her anymore.
Oh yeah, did you keep all your hair in like a little plastic bag so you can make a weave out of it?
I did, but I don't think it's gonna work. But I haven't.
God, that's funny.
But I don't know where it is though. I can just find it tomorrow and then I can show you.
That's ridiculous. I think I'm quite sleepy and I have to sleep off my headache before I go outside later today.
This is one question.
Yeah.
Should I cut my massive beard that is curly and donate it so some crazy black chick can get a white beard weave?
I say yes, 1000%. That sounds like a great idea.
It would probably look very funny.
It'd have a crazy texture. Yeah, that'd be quite interesting.
If you do it with real hair, it's gonna be very, very expensive. You can make a lot of money on that.
I guess the question is,
No.
how's your jawline? Are you hiding something? Did you need the coverage?
No. I just look like I look really ridiculous with this large beard, but I look kind of better with a small beard. But I have a chin, you know. The
Right.
Jay really has seen it. It's
yeah.
not. It's, I don't even know why I make myself look this way. It's just like having a large, weird, crazy beard.
That is weird. I can't have a large beard. I guess I have actually more hair in my arse than I have beard.
Thanks for letting us know.
And the worst thing was they shut down all the vaccine salons in South Africa. So I couldn't get vaxxed. I was like, oh my god, no, what the fuck? Why do you do this to me, lockdown?
14 billion vaccines.
Do I need to make the Nicholas J. Fuentes Foundation for Twinks real to get you your butt wax?
Yes.
Maybe it was a joke, but maybe it's a real
It
cause.
sounds weird. Someone has to wax your butt, like it's geometrically necessary for a person to be involved in waxing your butt.
Yeah, I can grow more hair there than I can grow on my face. It's very, very peculiar.
Maybe you should save that hair too for another weave.
You could transplant your butt hair on your face. I don't know if you'd be down for that.
Could you imagine the scandal if somebody bought a weave and it turned out that the hair was from an ass crack?
Oh my god. No, but I can't grow that long hair to make a weave out of it anyways. It wouldn't be. But if I could, God, I hope I would not be able to in the future. But that
It's
would be...
Just concentrate.
It's just like this Tenacious D skits from like 20 years ago. Like, dude, I'm balding. Oh, that's so sad. But actually, you can have all the hair from my butt, but just the straight ones, not the curly ones. Them's mine.
But all of them are curly. But technically all my hair is also part of the neck. But like,
Well,
if
okay. Now that we're talking about ass hair, I think
No,
that
I'm not-
we've
I'm not finished.
degenerated. No, we've degenerated to the bottom, literally.
But you say it gets horrible when it's hot. But
Yeah, of course. Of course.
heated.
You
Well, I
and your
think our stream was
hot
quite
Twitter.
dignified. I think we talked about a lot of good current events. We had some interesting high moments and low moments, some contrasts. I appreciate having some regular guests pop in. Any
And I was going-
final closing thoughts before I end the stream?
Thanks for having me on, man. It was awesome. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah, it's always great to have you.
And I really liked how Ashley was a bit contrarian on certain points that you made in the past. Like that's a nice, healthy conversation right there. That was good.
Yeah, we have a couple of arguments.
Yeah, it was lovely. Like he points something out. Very civil, normal conversation. More people should talk about stuff that someone said in the past. That
He
way.
has, like,
I really like that.
Yeah, he has like the deepest, darkest black pill in his heart, though. We have to find the white pill for him, I think.
Well, I'm pretty white.
Or at least turn into a white Russian, you know?
Yeah, if nothing else.
Well, I took the race pill. That's why I'm so happy.
That's like literally the last reason to be happy. Like the race pill is the worst pill. It's like the saddest one.
No, why does it make me feel so happy that I wake up with joy every day?
You just think it's blonde girls in wheat fields all the way down. It's not.
No, I don't think that's the case even. Because I'm taking the race pill, that's what I can see.
But we were in finishing stages, J-Billy.
Finishes. It was going down, under.
For the stream, like,
That's what happened. It was going down under, literally.
I live in a land down under.
Down the arse.
Well, on that note, everybody have a nice day, and keep it easy. And yeah, later this week I'll have the last part of the John Stoltenberg bullshit, and then a week after that, just a
be
stream
fun.
discussing anything that was brought up before.
Oh, but before we go, I just need to tell the people that I'm gonna have a live stream tomorrow. Not tomorrow, but I'm gonna have a live stream this Saturday on my YouTube channel. So if anybody want to go and check it out, they can do that.
All right, fun.
Okay.
Is it gonna be like 5 fucking hours like the last one?
No, it's gonna be much shorter. It's gonna be from another friend from the country.
Well, I hope your other friend brings his tin whistle just like before, because that's some good shit. A good tin whistle in D. Play a little jig.
Don't mention stuff like this to me. I literally have a backpack here.
Yeah, and
Nobody
in 1
wants to
week
hear
from
that.
now, we'll have our weave stream. We'll see what happens. We'll see how that works out. What do you call a weave
Beautiful.
enthusiast? Oh, do you guys want to hear a funny joke? Well, what do you call somebody who's a weave enthusiast? A weeaboo.
Or either.
Oh no. I feel like this one's on me because I always do the bad ones.
Yeah, that will. Yeah, you're owed one. So now we're even.
I feel like